Are we captions and everything?
We're captions, we're good to go.
Okay, motion to call the meeting to order. Is there a second?
I second.
Roll call, trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Lampier.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Mayor Palmer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, is there anybody who has any conflict of interest or anything to disclose regarding the agenda items for this evening?
I do not.
Oh,
I do not.
stereo, okay. I do not. Okay, first up, public comment.
You know what, actually, I just wanted to mention that Lisa and I both have, we're on the retirement form, so that might be a possible conflict there.
Oh.
And the rest of the board might be voting to submit
Do you want to
those.
speak to that?
It kind of is.
Is it?
I don't think it's a big deal, but
The reason I say that is they do have a benefit financially to
That's
being
true.
on New York State retirement, so I would say that they should excuse themselves or recuse themselves from
Okay.
voting on that matter.
Duly noted for the record, thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Okay, you on top of that? All right, then, next up, treasurer's report.
Okay. Well, I present the village with a good-sized bill pay. Is there any questions on any of the items?
Yeah, I had one question. So just administratively, I see that Finucane, which is the ethics board attorney,
Yep.
is still presented there. I thought they had hit the budget that the board had approved, minus some of the numbers. Do you know if that's true or not true?
I would have to review and see.
Could we then consider approving the rest of the bill pay with the exception of that one, so that then other?
Pending review.
I'm sorry?
Pending review.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Sure.
Okay, and while we're amending the bill pay, I'm going to ask that the board, we received notification today from the Park Zoo Society, I'm saying it all wrong. We had them put in the butterfly garden over here, and we agreed to pay them $500. Somehow that bill never got paid from '22, and we need to make them whole. So I'd like to add it to this bill pay since they've waited so long.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's one. The other one, I did inform the board, I'm requesting permission to pay Barrow for their work on 75 Monroe. It's $25,363. I'm going to establish a line for this for the consultants, as we will take in whatever through building permit or whatever means to offset that. So it'd be expanding the budget to allow this to happen.
With the idea that the restitution would be made pending the permit.
Through the applicant.
The applicant, yes.
Okay, so we understand, so that I understand, we are going to pay and they are going to pay us.
That is the plan, and it's always been the plan.
Okay.
Okay, but I feel at this point, holding the consultant up any further,
Yeah,
they've been very considerate. I talked to Jennifer Aarons, there will be another bill coming, but, they understand the issues, and they would just like to see at least this paid at this time.
This might be a dumb question, but why are we the middleman? Why couldn't the applicant?
Because we wanted the consultants, we wanted to choose the consultants, and I have the applicant choose the consultants.
The applicants agreed to pay whatever consultants we choose to.
That was discussed in an outside session, but that was my understanding all along, that the applicant would be paying for the consultants we involved in the fund.
And any further discussion on this at any level of detail, we would have to go into a session. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, just so, we're clear
All
on that.
right,
Okay, I just want to make our consultant whole.
Yeah, we have a long-standing relationship.
Yep,
with this
absolutely.
firm, and, they do such good work.
At the end of the day, we contracted with them, so we
Yeah.
will pay.
Okay,
Okay, as long as you're good with those additions.
yeah, Justin?
Yeah, I'll make a motion then to approve the bill pay as presented, minus the item from Finucane pending review, and with the addition of the architectural payment and the Seneca Park Zoo payment as discussed.
I second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Okay, trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lampier.
aye,
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Palmer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okey-doke.
All right, wonderful. So I did have a few items to discuss with the board.
I'm just wondering if we wanted to consider rearranging, since I see Mr. Jewett is here, and he if I'm on the right minutes, we had an authorization for a short-term retail permit.
Would you like to move that on the agenda? Just move it up right
Would the
now?
board consider that?
I would.
Sure.
What we're doing is.
Probably had a long day.
Ah.
Thanks for bringing that up. Okay.
I thought you were like on a little break.
So we're gonna ask Dorothea to hit the pause button on her, okay? And then why don't we move?
No,
to-
that's okay, I'm all.
Yeah,
Go
we're
Christmas
good, okay. Yeah, who doesn't want to think about Christmas trees? Okay. So next up is the authorization for the public hearing for a short-term retail permit, November 14th.
Right here?
Yeah. Tara, yeah,
I'm in trouble.
we don't bite, not usually. Great, so,
Same Christmas tree stand? Yep, nothing changing this year. I think this is the 27th or 28th year. It's going to have the same pattern,
yeah,
same lights, nothing, no new lighting, no high sodium. One temporary sign on the Corby's property off the public right of way. Because Thanksgiving's so early this year, it's the 23rd, I'd like to start setting up on
yeah,
the 11th, Saturday, which gives me a week and a half to get wood chips down and
get everything
And
going.
then last year we did that, and it took all of a week and a half to get everything ready and looking good. And I'm not going to set the trees up till the day before Thanksgiving, it's just too early. But then if we go to the 28th next year, it moves back to
Yeah, just for the
November
holiday,
28th,
yeah.
so I'll get that extra week. So I won't be asking to be setting it up so early. And then everything will be broken down. I always say by January 1st, but it's always well before that. Everything's broken down. And then just raking up wood chips and getting everything looking back the way it was. And that's the plan. And seems to be
Sticking
working.
to it.
Yeah.
So what we're doing tonight is that we are moving this to public hearing. Is that correct? It requires a public hearing.
Does it?
Yes,
Yes. And it would be November 14th at 6 PM.
And you want to set up on the 11th?
I would say that him setting up is at his own risk.
Yeah, that's true, you would take on, quote, the risk of setting up before the, in other words, we can't have,
Public hearing?
yeah, for the permit.
Okay.
Yeah, in other words,
Do I have to be present for that? Oh, it's just,
no,
You
but,
can give Steve the right to represent you, or I can, it's absolutely.
yeah.
So,
Is that
so we,
new?
yeah, so we do that every year?
This is the
This
first
is
I've
for the
heard of it.
short-term retail permit.
I think maybe you skipped this part before and come to the public hearing portion in past years. We've been doing this with you, I think, 3 years? or something.
Yeah.
Since the new,
Yeah,
since the
yeah,
new,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah.
So it has to go to public hearing because it's retail, because it's sales. Is that right?
It's in our law. So, all, Dorothea, what you were saying, and you're correct, you can go ahead and set up, and then the hearing will come after, just so you know. We're just saying,
Yeah, the setup is really just hanging.
Okay,
It's
but
nothing
just
that
so you
could
know,
be
that-
reversed in.
what we're trying to say is the
Yeah.
setup is, quote, you're taking, quote, the risk of setting up something that may or may not have to be approved, which is,
Yeah,
we have a tradition, as you know, so
Yeah.
approving. Okay,
okay.
just so we're all clear on that.
Okay.
That's all this is. It's just the
You do
timing.
not have to be present for
No.
sound.
No.
If you agree to allow Dorothea to present for you that
I've
evening.
represented many groups, I'm always happy to do so.
Yeah, or Steve, if he's here, one of them, yeah, just so you have somebody speaking on your behalf, if there's any question, but,
Okay.
just so there's that. And then is there the 45-day?
No, not with us.
Oh,
This is
Not for
that's right.
short-term retail.
That's right.
public hearing.
That's right. So what am I
Not
thinking?
not municipal.
We're not even there. We're not even there. I am
This is
so far
just
down a
legal
road,
posting.
so far down a road tonight.
No, I can
I'm already
never
moving.
add a 45 to the short-term retail.
Yeah, we never will, never will. Okay, so is there a motion?
So I make a motion to move David Jewett's Christmas tree sales to public hearing for November 14th at 6 PM. Do I have a second?
Second? Was there a second somewhere?
Dave got it.
Yeah, but you seconded
My
it
weak
second.
side.
No,
Yeah.
it's good.
It's
It's like belt and suspenders.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Lampier.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Great.
Thanks for coming in.
I have, when I submitted my permit, there's like this overhead view where I
Mhm.
Yeah.
can save that since it's
Yeah.
the exact same every year.
We'll keep it in the system. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I kind of write it all out, it's the exact same. If we could.
we're good.
Okay, good.
I'll make a note of that, just so Steve will know to save that.
Okay, am I good?
Yeah, thank
You're-
you.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming in.
Enjoy your
Thanks.
evening.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Take care now.
Okay, you too. See you there. See you now.
Are you ready to go back to me?
Mhm.
Thank you for allowing me to.
Yeah, well, thanks for bringing that up. That way he's not stuck there.
No problem.
Okay, so I'm going to take you off the pause button, Dorothea.
I've been.
Next up.
Okay, I did have financial and capital planning, I will touch briefly. I did reach out, as we're instructed, to our financial advisors. They did provide me with initial thought of a quote. It would be between $5,000 and $10,000. They gave me examples of what they've done in the past. I'll be happy to forward that on to the board so they can see. I just received that today, so. I did talk to another company, G&G Consulting. I did run into them at NICOM, and actually the initial discussions with them was on grant writing. And with talking with them, they do financial multi-year planning. So they are going to submit something to me as well. But I'd also like to bring them in, and we did meet with them, me and the mayor, about the grant. And they have some great ideas, and I think it's well worth the board's time to hear them, even on both topics.
Yeah, I think they wanted to speak on both topics because they were excited about it.
And I think they were a very strong
Mhm.
contender to talk to. And we have a third option as well, another grant writing company as well, who does capital planning. And I haven't had a chance, I just got their name today. And also our accountant would look at it. I might express this to you, but they would prefer we talk to someone else first.
On that topic, so what is the appropriate process at this point to put out a bid? Or how do we go about getting these officially and then selecting one to move forward?
Given the amount, since it's ranging from the first estimate between 5,000 and 10,000, I would suggest putting an RFP together, getting official quotes back in.
Yep.
And then the board would make that decision. The other problem you would have with this is because this is an unfunded project, we would have to decide how we're going to fund it. We'd have to look at the budget and decide if you're moving some money for what you intended to go into reserves. That's kind of, right now, we hate to touch it, but it might be worth moving it from there, or contingency. It's a little early to touch contingency. I would never recommend it at this point, into a line item and establish that so we could pay for that.
Okay, so then the next question is what's the turnaround time
On an RFP,
on putting this out? And
well,
getting
an
this
RFP, I would have to get some assistance in getting this written up. I would suggest that whether we did it in-house or, usually Harder's been very good at writing, but I don't think this is in his wheelhouse.
You might be able to recommend somebody, though.
He might be able
He
to recommend
works with
someone,
so
because I
many
want the
different
wording
ones.
right, and I want to make sure. And I will say, and I think the mayor even had this conversation talking with the clerks, none of the other villages have a multi-year plan, so none of them have done this work, so I can't even reach to them and say, do you have an RFP for this? Because
Does the
nobody's,
town have one?
that's a good question.
Yeah, we're gonna check with the town, and also, I had a mayor's dinner last week, and I said, hey, where are you with 5-year planning? And they said, what? So then I said, well, this is something, we're really excited about, and they said, oh, if you get a template or anything going, let us know. So I think they're kind of looking,
Maybe we'll patent it.
I know, really, here we go, another line item.
Yeah.
So, but the mayor of Brockport, they are interested in doing some type of planning. I don't know if it's fully a 5-year, but they're looking at some long-range planning. They've just started to talk about it. I'm going to get in touch with the mayor, because they may actually have somebody that they know that could help with an RFP. So we're trying to pull it together. That's really where it is. And so we already have at least 3 firms that we know
that we can go out
Certainly,
to.
yeah, certainly could respond to any kind of an RFP. Yeah, Justin.
I'm just wondering if, have we already asked NICOM if they have any advice on issuing an RFP for this?
We can reach out to them
Yeah.
and see if they have any templates.
Mhm.
I think that would be great. And also, since this is essentially, the New York State Comptroller has a guide on multi-year capital planning, I wonder if, since they're the ones advocating the process, we can ask them if they have any
We
ideas.
can look
on-
at their guidance. I don't know if they have a template necessarily. We might be able to steal from the guidance to create our own
At
RFP.
least would give us a background.
Yep.
Yeah,
You know, what is, multi-year planning, what we're looking for. If, again, we can try to steal and put something together. I can't guarantee I can have it for the next meeting.
So I would also suggest is whoever we've been talking to, I'm sure at some point in the past, they've responded to an RFP.
We can reach out and ask them if they have a template, but typically you try to avoid taking templates from
Yeah.
vendors because they skew usually to the vendor, and that's not a good practice, but it might give us a format that we can
Right,
look at.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, no,
I mean, I would consider part of the research,
Yeah,
information
absolutely.
gathering at this point to see
Absolutely.
which way to go.
So then, still on that topic, so I have this lingering concern that as we work our way to the end of the year with this budget, for whatever various reasons, we're at a point where we're backed up against the wall a little bit for how fast this RFP is going to take place. And I think from a priority perspective, I would much rather focus internally to getting an RFP out, or at least seeing something on our desk or our hands by November 14th, even if it's a draft version of something, because to delay another month and a month after that, I mean, I'd be willing to have special meetings to get this thing out there, because we're going to have to interview, or they're going to come forward and present, and by the time we hire, their turnaround time's probably going to be 3 months plus, and now we're looking at being into next year's budget. So we have money going into reserves, and we're not pulling out unless we have a long-term capital plan. That's how we pass the budget in March or April.
Let me be clear, what you have dictated to go to those reserves, unless those reserves are established by year end,
That's right.
that money does not go into those reserves. They don't exist. I can't fund something that, and I'm not trying to be
Sure.
pie in the sky, I can't do that because they have to legally exist. That's one of the reasons why we were pushing on getting the reserves
Getting the
established,
reserves
so we
established.
can fund them. And until we have the language and the board hits, yes, it doesn't exist. So I can't fund something that doesn't exist.
Correct.
So I'm just saying, it's in there technically. Technically, we're hoping those are established by year end.
So the comment to that is, the long-term capital plan will have the various topical line items that should be defining what our long-term, what our reserves are. So once we identify what those are, and you had worked with this on Zach, and we'd identified, I think, 6 different line items. And we may be able to use those as a template to go back to the person doing the long-term capital plan and say, hey, these are our 6 topics, we want everything to go into this. And then we just move to create the reserves. They may come back and say, hey, look, you need a separate line item or a new line item for this, and we need to make some adjustments. And perhaps then we can go to Jeff and say, okay, we need to modify it, based on this. So write the language that's flexible enough for us to make some modifications as we work our way into next year's budget. But I have every intent, at some point along the way, between now and the end of the year, of instructing Jeff to create reserves, regardless if the long-term capital plan is complete.
I need to jump in on that. The previous board had directed Jeff already to repurpose those reserves with language, and Jeff is going to be getting back to us with that. I was hoping by the next meeting.
Yeah.
So this was a direction of the previous board. So maybe, the action I would think would be, he would bring that language back, and then there may be additional redirection with this new board, but that was an action that was voted on, okay? I'm just trying to fill you in on the moving, because the repurposing of the reserves came up actually the first year I was in office, because we knew we needed to do it. So it's been a very long path, but there already is direction. So I think we at least use that as a point of departure to make sure we're fine tuning it with this new board.
And my understanding of that language in terms of how it was crafted was it was going to be a little more open-ended than the intent of the budget that we adopted, or at least That's my understanding of the majority of the board, wherein the language for the reserves as we work our way into the end of the year would be specific to assets like building, DPW building, roads,
Yeah,
right?
that's what they put together for us.
Yeah,
We're
so-
following the guidelines.
And so you had done some work on that, Dorothea. I'm just seeing if this is in here, I don't think it is, but
No, it isn't.
the challenge that I may have, Mayor, to your point, is whether or not that direction to Jeff that was provided earlier was specific to enough reserve language or enough reserves in terms of the different buckets.
No, understand, but I think we're saying the same thing differently. Okay, in other words, we all need a starting point.
Yep.
And we already have one that was already directed per direction. So let's start with that and then just move in with everything else.
Sure.
I think we've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this. Now, I know you said by November 14th. So when are you going on vacation?
I'm leaving November 1st.
Okay,
I get back November 10th.
okay.
It's going to be tight. I'm not going to,
Yeah.
I do my best to see what I can have for the next board meeting. I hate to make promises I can't keep. Like I said, it's a lot of research. I will obviously include, Alexandria to help me. She'll be prepping. Matter of fact, that was part of my report, is I'm going to be on vacation November 1st,
Yeah.
November 10th. Alexandria will be putting together the next packet for you. So, please respond to her with your agenda items as soon as you can. So we can, when I get back, hopefully
So
we'll have too many updates.
We'll do our
But we'll
best.
do what
Yeah.
best I can to have something in front of the board.
No, because I think we're all in agreement, absolutely.
If you could put that on the agenda for next
Mhm.
Mhm.
meeting on the 14th. Also, if it's okay by the board, could we, when Jeff arrives sometime later, maybe under member items, just ask him about the work that he's doing currently on the reserves based on the prior request from the board, and then see how much direction he needs to get the process started on the other items, and if he would find it beneficial to wait for some input back from a consultant, or if we just give him the separate line items and we get that process started sooner.
Well, I think we should just give them the separate line items anyway. I mean,
Good.
why not?
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that's been discussed. Let me put it this way, I don't think we're going in the wrong direction,
Sure.
so let's start the direction, because I agree, we need to move it forward. So let's initiate it, let's give them as much information as possible, from this board as well. He has information from the previous board, and let's just,
Okay.
And I have
Gotta go.
additional language from him that I picked up at
Right.
FinCom that I feel will align with
Right.
coming from the comptrollers. And if I'm going to put my faith in any language, it's going to be from the comptrollers.
Sure. Sounds good. Okay, thank you for that.
All right, let's move on to road and debt financing update. This is something you also asked about.
Yeah.
And I need to bring this to you because we currently have a contractor out there working on a project. And we don't have financing in the budget again. And this is GPI. So eventually we're going to see an invoice. So I think the discussion we had when Marie Donegan was here, that we could take this from fund balance and when we get the bond, reimburse ourselves back if we chose to do that. We need to pay when we get this invoice, so I need to get this established in the budget, because I'm anticipating we're going to see something at some point.
and that's going to be in the engineering line?
Yeah, it'd be in the engineering.
Okay.
line.
Okay, so it doesn't need to be a separate line item, because we're already,
I could create a separate line
Okay.
item, but unless the board requests that, I don't really see a need. Engineering is pretty
it's
self-explanatory.
pretty straightforward, okay.
So if it's okay by the board, I'd like to move forward in issuing one bond, not multiple bonds. Skip the ban, just do a bond.
Mhm.
When Donegan and Associates had come in, they had suggested that the band and the bond each would be $5,000.
Mhm.
If we just do a bond and just move to issue it, right? If we do up to the cap, that $1 million, whatever excess amount we have, well, we may not have identified what we need it for, we know we have other roads that we need to get done. I think it would be best to bring in the capital on one issue, place it, set it aside, potentially use it to fund reserves for infrastructure projects, keep it on the general fund, however the comptroller would suggest it.
You can't,
You can't do that.
We need projects identified.
You do
Yeah.
need to identify when you put out your
Okay,
that letter, you need to identify what projects, you can say in general, road projects, but it can't go to a reserve.
Great, let's do road projects.
Yeah, you can make it pretty open-ended.
As much as we
and you
can.
did that in the
Yeah.
past. You just don't, you got to tie it to something
Fair
that
enough.
has a life expectancy, because that's how your determination on your years of your bond is determined.
I recognize that there may be some added carry expense on if we issue $100,000 or $150,000 more, but we're going to need it. We're possibly going to need it in the next year for engineering work, for the next road that we get done,
Sure.
and how we finance that.
Why not go for the whole
So I'm
issue?
just saying, do the $1 million chunks and do it as a bond right away rather than a ban. And I think we should get that process started.
I just have just a quick general question. Is there an advantage to doing a band before a bond? I mean, I don't, just asking.
The advantage is that if you have a grant, as we do with this South Street, you could have that come in, and then you could pay it down that much before you rolled it into a bond. It also could be advantage depending on the market, whether we think things are going to come down with interest rates. I think, the best recommendations for that is always going to be the financial advisors. I wouldn't even begin to.
Okay.
There's different pluses and minuses for both things. I agree with you with the coverage,
Yeah.
the issuance cost, that is, because you're going to pay your attorney to issue the bond note, you're going to also pay your financial advisors for the actual note.
So why pay multiple times?
Yeah.
Unless
Unless your
one shot,
thinking rates.
we know we're going to need the money.
Unless your betting rates go down.
Yeah, that's
And-
the only thing.
It's possible they do over the next year. So I guess we'll have to defer and have an opinion.
Right.
Yeah,
But maybe for November 14th, if we can have Donegan Associates come in and tell us what do we need to do to get that process started.
so that's going to go on the agenda for
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the same topic, if we're looking at taking out a bond or ban for the road work, I would like to push forward getting the road status report established.
I believe Zach is working on
Yeah.
that currently. I won't speak for him, but I
Yeah.
know he had an employee signed to it and they came down with COVID. So,
Yeah,
just-
there were two, so basically we're trying to figure out across all the roads in the village,
Yeah.
which ones are in which status and what they need next, which will help us to establish
Yeah.
the prices.
Mhm.
So I want to have that in place before we decide how much money we're going to take out. And the two possibilities for that are having the town help us, I believe. and-
Which they are.
and that
Which they are.
baseline
That, I mean, they literally have been out
So
doing the
they-
assessments
Yeah.
until one of the crew that was doing the assessment came down with
Right.
COVID.
Okay, that was the town member then.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so that's already been moving
Yeah.
forward.
actually, it's
Yeah.
a village staff member, came down with COVID, but putting it there, and I know he did request from GPI an estimate
Yeah.
cost on doing that, and I haven't seen it.
Well, if the town is helping us with that, as long as somebody is working on that
Yeah,
survey, I
they-
think
oh,
that
yes.
we need that before we
Yeah.
decide.
Yeah,
No,
actually
we had
spoke to
that
him today.
discussion.
That's a big priority, all right. thanks.
Yeah, no, that discussion is had. But in the meantime, how does the board want to handle when we get the bill from GPI?
I think that depends on exactly how sure we are with budget and taking a look at those numbers and figuring out.
Well, again, you contracted, you agreed to pay this company. So my suggestion again is to take from fund balance with the anticipation of the bond to pay back the fund
Yeah.
balance, if that's what you
Yeah.
choose.
We're still-
Just so, I mean, when you sent this to me, I was already saying to Mary, I need to put this on, because my concern is I'm going to get a bill walking in, and we never did go back to discuss how we're going to fund it.
And that's around 100K,
I believe it was like 98, 99.
roughly. I'm just throwing that out.
What's our fund balance right now?
Last time I looked, we were around 700,000.
Yeah.
So we're sitting
Early in the
comfortable.
Seems like the right thing to do. How quick, again, is the bond turnaround time?
I'm going to guess 6 weeks, depending.
Okay. That'll just come up in a bill pay, right?
Yes, it'll come up when we get the request to pay GPI, it'll come in, but as long as I know you're okay for me taking it from fund balance, I want it. The request from the board is to allow me to take that from. fund
Yeah,
balance.
we would direct you to do that,
Right.
right? Do we need to formally vote on that?
I would, yes,
put it-
ask
I would think
for
somebody could make a motion and we could
that. Yeah,
make sure you're directed
when it
that way.
comes to you, I will ask for
Yeah,
that.
okay,
And we can wait
yeah,
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can,
we get 30 days after getting the bill.
but I want to clarify with GPI, not GPI, with Bernie Donegan, the timeframe, because it might be very low. We have to put it out for a stop and questions and give people time to jam. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, are we good on that one?
Yeah.
Okay, Village Hall HVAC, we did have our furnace guy out to take a look at things to see if we can get through winter. His suggestion is we get this replaced in the spring. He doesn't see us getting any further. He's hoping we won't break down. So that's the news.
And, that actually, this has come before the board before, because we have 2 oil burning furnaces and 1 old gas furnace as well. So I think, and maybe we could put them on the next meeting as well, to bring back the company that responded to the green infrastructure.
Siemens.
Thank you, Siemens. Because they, this came before the board, and I think it would be in our interest to revisit that and make a decision. And I just found out, I had a meeting with somebody from the town, and the town has signed an agreement with Siemens, and they're already putting out RFPs. I think it's for upgrades on lighting, and the savings are going to go directly into sustainable projects right at Town Hall. So, I think we really should take a look at that, because they can help us source grant funding. They can, there's
And even our heating guy said there's tons of grants out there.
Oh, yeah, the money's there.
For what we're looking
Yeah.
at. And his biggest concern is the heater that he's here in the upstairs. It's rusty, there's lines. He cleaned up everything. So far, we're okay, but, things change.
Last season, yeah,
And we don't pay Siemens unless they,
save money.
okay.
And so the way it works, and this is in my meeting with the town, they're looking at a significant cost savings, and then, Siemens gets a percentage, and then the remainder gets reinvested, they can reinvest it back into green infrastructure for the town. And so they're pretty psyched about it. Their RFP just went out. So anyway, so I think that should be on the next agenda as well, because, we're really kind of at the 11th hour with the HVAC system here. I don't know if any of you guys have been down there to see it. It should be in the Smithsonian, yeah.
Given the urgency behind the HVAC item, I would like to also urge us to proceed down a separate path in parallel to look at traditional HVAC systems. My concerns with the Siemens approach when we last reviewed it were that they were more suitable for larger municipalities, it appeared to me. And also, I'm not sure what kind of concrete savings we're going to be looking at with heating equipment that would then be utilized in this program. So I think that in order to make sure that we have the heating needs addressed, I would also look at a more traditional path too, just to figure out which one is viable.
Some comparables.
Yeah, we certainly can do that. I didn't have that understanding. I think that's interesting. I think, when the Golisano Institute for Sustainability did the energy audit of the entire building, they really came up with very similar recommendations that Siemens did as well. And also, I wish Steve were here, because Steve also has reached out to all kinds of companies about alternatives. So, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Let's take a look at everything, right?
Mhm.
For sure. Okay, so we can do that.
Okay, moving on to Village Hall electrical quotes. This is what I promised last meeting, neglected to put the quotes in. As you can see, the upgrade to the Village Hall, before we move forward with anything with heating as well, we need to take care of the electric. That's why we're seeing some of the surges, the flickering, the problems we have. We're at capacity on our current load. So at some point, this has to be tied in along with the upgrades for the HVAC. Okay.
I'm thinking, we had issued last year, I think it was, the report on the building with all the different costs.
Yeah.
We may want to have that available in the packet for like the next meeting, because we're really looking at all of this again, These are things that aren't going away.
Right, we're meeting that long-term capital anyways. We gotta put it-
Yeah, so let's make sure that that's included as well. I think that'd be helpful.
So if I may, on both of these proposals, so how much was the HVAC?
The HVAC, when we were looking at heat pumps, even our current vendor, he suggested if we look at heat pumps, look at 3 heat pumps. for the
Yeah, for
separate
zones.
zones, to keep it consistent. He felt that would be better for us. I think at that time, Steve had some quotes like 55, 60,000. And then we were looking, we would qualify for additional grants because we have a $5,000 grant that's sitting, waiting to be used. We very well could have qualified for a $25,000.
Yeah, because what happens, as soon as we implement something that has, that's sustainable, because we're a climate smart community, we receive a direct grant at like, quote, the next level. So it's like, gold,
Right.
bronze, gold, silver, it goes up platinum.
Right.
And so we already have hit one level, and we have received a $5,000 grant, which we were hoping to put towards, the HVAC system. So if we get the HVAC system, then we immediately are eligible, we get the points, we're immediately eligible for the next level. And I think the next level you're saying is 20,
I believe it was 20 or 25.
20 or 25,000.
Which we were going to apply towards.
And it's not matching, but the use of it goes back to the village for sustainable efforts, sustainable initiatives. So we would put it maybe towards EV chargers or,
The heating system.
the heating system, whatever it could be,
Inverter.
And then if you do that, then you get to the next level, you can get quite a bit of funding.
Let me ask,
And we can send out that information so you all understand it.
yeah. that would be
Yeah.
helpful. So what you're suggesting is if we spend 50,000 on HVAC, but it's sustainable,
Mhm.
that we're going to get 25 grand back, that could simply go to pay that 50 grand.
That's the way I was hoping to
Yeah.
use it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there's money out
So
there.
then
that's
as
what-
we look at
Yeah.
it versus a traditional HVAC,
It's going to be.
then we'd have to balance all these
Sure.
different options.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you have
Balance
to.
of the grants.
And I think that's what Siemens was trying to say, that, for many reasons, I think it's in our best interest as best practices, look at something that's sustainable. But also because we are climate smart, and if we proceed with all of these initiatives, it's to our financial benefit as well.
Sure.
I just, as far as the electrical is concerned, I would like to see what the exact needs are and decide on the direction for the HVAC before we upgrade the service.
Right, well, we
In order
can
to
tie that
up.
together. What I would think we would do, because to be honest, the cost of doing that, the RGB factor, you can't change. That cost is going to be that cost. The electrician would have to leave it out. I would honestly put a whole bid package together for that. Because let's be honest, we'd have to bid the HVAC. It's going to trigger it every day of the week, unless they're, what's the word I'm going for? They're under contract, unless they have a state contract.
Right.
Yeah, I think that so if you're looking at a geothermal heat pump, then you're also looking at, wells or other.
Right, and there's other
conservation.
things I think we
So you're
didn't, I
looking
don't
at
know,
more
there's a
than
whole,
Well, there's all different ways. It wasn't just geothermal.
Yeah,
There's a
but-
number of sustainable alternatives.
Yeah, or you can look at mini
Yeah.
splits or something. But
Yep.
then you are looking at requiring the $20,000 electrical upgrade, whereas if you did use something like natural gas, you don't need to do that necessarily because you're just having a traditional.
I'm going
boiler.
to argue no, because you sat here and watched these lights flicker. At any given moment, we are hitting capacity. And given the recent issues we had, I would highly suggest to the board, let's get the electric upgraded, just because I don't think we want another fire.
So in that regard, and I've kind of heard two different things, that the $20,000 electrical upgrade is either oriented towards making us safer or looking at
I think it's
capacity
both.
for other things. I don't really think that it makes us safer, because you're actually talking about doubling the amount of current that's allowed through the system, which could actually burn down Village Hall faster. So.
I think we're kind of getting a little off
I'd like
point
to,
here.
I think we need to
I
go
think
into
we
that,
need
though, because
additional
if you're looking
information.
at perhaps applying
Bring this back.
AFCIs or doing other kinds of electrical upgrades, they might make us safer. The one in the packet does not make us safer, I don't think. So let's look at that.
We need to see both of them. We need to see them side by side, savings, costs, the whole thing.
Cost benefit analysis.
Yeah, yes.
How about that?
One final on this.
Yeah, sure.
Topic. One of the benefits of having a long-term capital plan done and having a budget that directs capital to reserves for these long-term capital plans, and then having projects or potential expenses like these that were not identified in the budget, right? We can look at the budget, we can look at the long-term capital plan, and then within it, we can have priority items and a wish list,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Things that we frankly didn't plan for. Or maybe we're trying to plan for it, we just don't have the money for it. But when you have a long-term capital plan done, right, you had a fully vetted discussion, and you're basically project ready, you can go solicit for capital. In the county, with the state, look for grants, it's a lot easier to get that stuff if you've done all the prep work, right? So what I would suggest is let's, continue to move this forward in terms of research, and then whether or not it's through grants or additional funding, let's try to go find it, rather than just steal it from the budget line item, or steal it from the reserve.
Yeah, and I think that's why, Jason is already reaching out to the 3 different companies that not only do, at least some of them do, not only financial planning, they do grants. And that also is something that I thought was an advantage with a company like Siemens. They have in-house grant writing, and they would help us procure the funding. Because we're so small, this is a great way to create partnerships with companies that do this, to move our initiatives forward and our projects forward. So I'm right there with you.
And I don't disagree on the grant front or having any of our consultants help us with that grant writing. I'm talking about just direct asks to the county or to the state, to our representatives. Hey, can you work in $50,000 for a budget? Look, we have a long-term capital plan, nobody else does, I guess, right? And we have these projects that need to get done. Case in point, we just had a fire caused by electric. We need to get this done. It wasn't in the budget. And we have all these roads to get done. Help us out. So in addition to the grants coming in, if we can get some money.
And I'd like to speak to that, because I think you've hit on it. We have a $100,000 grant as a direct ask with Samra Brooks' office for the sidewalks. We just did another direct ask, and I reported this to the board with Jen Lunsford, for the HVAC, actually, we're asking everybody for money.
Great.
I'm right there with you. It can't be the one thing, it has to be multiple prongs of attack, or approach to get the funding, 100%.
And I think our success in those asks will be driven by having a long-term capital plan, having a budget, identifying where our deficiencies are, and then saying, hey, look, we don't have the money. We know where all our money's going. It's going to roads, it's going to infrastructure, right? But this also needs to get done, shovel ready, help us out. And then they can go to their, the legislature or whatever, and ask for it a little easier, knowing that we've done all that work. So, okay, fair enough.
Great, wonderful, good input. Thanks, everybody.
The refuse district survey, I wanted to touch on that and give a little update. We did issue that. Lily, you had one question. Yes, we can see if the same email address works twice, so we can eliminate anybody who does do that.
Yeah, the double
Okay, we
dipping.
do have that.
Yeah, someone asked me, I didn't even.
Yep, I was able to
Mhm.
figure that out. Currently, just so the board knows, we've had 62 responses.
Well, that's great.
So.
Did anybody else get it here at the board level? Did you guys get yours?
Yeah.
Mine was in my trash, my spam
It was in your
folder.
trash.
Oh, you're Sam.
I don't get
Dear.
Okay, so far no is 16, so far yes is 46, but
Okay.
it's still, so just so you have an
Yeah.
idea of what is that. But we can't see if there's duplicates. Obviously, I cannot tell 2 emails come from the same household. I don't have that capability.
Okay, so in other words, somebody could sit, yes.
No, you would see the same email over
Same
and over
email, I
again.
can see.
You will see that.
But if
We would
they had
only-
multiple email addresses,
Oh.
I can't
No,
tell.
but I mean, there could be more than one email address at one address. I mean,
Right,
it could be.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what she's saying, to
Yeah.
confirm what your
Yeah, I
thoughts
cannot.
are.
And that counts.
Yes.
I can't tell.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
I guess
honestly,
if somebody wanted to waste their time doing that.
no, it's not foolproof. It's just giving us,
An
Taking the
idea.
temperature,
Right,
it's
it's
taking
taking
the
a temperature,
temperature.
right, it's not, we're not active.
I knew you'd like that.
I like that.
This
Take the
is-
temperature.
This is a per resident opinion, though, not a per household opinion. So if there's 4 voting residents in a
That's true.
household,
That's
those
true,
4
too.
voting
Yeah.
residents all get a voice compared to just one.
That's true, because they can come
That's a
to
good
public
point.
hearing.
It's not about household.
Right.
Well
That's
done.
true.
okay. So
Okay.
that's where we stand on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
No, it is great.
That's great.
Okay, so beautification contracts, this is something we see you've asked, I talked to the other villages. They don't do that. There's several reasons why. If you start bundling them, then you got to put out a bid. And then it gets more complicated. Then you're looking at wage rates, you're looking at a lot of different things. You lose control over your contractors, whether you have, one year the contractor works great, the next year they don't, but you're stuck because you're tied to,
Well, you can put in the contract that if we're not happy with the service, that we're all allowed to get out.
But the bottom line is, they don't do it. They find it easier just to put out what they need every year, especially if we change what flowers we want, whatever. It's typically, it's always been that year. They put out the
And
same
I brought it up
way.
at the mayor's meeting, and they echoed some of the same sentiments, but they also said that they didn't think the nurseries would even be interested in doing it, because just the nature of their business, that they don't want to deal. You know, like, you want them next year, great, let us know.
And we've reached out every year, and the thing is, we've reached out to at least 3 or 4, and sometimes we're lucky we get 2 that want to bid.
Yeah, that's true, too. It's become a narrow field.
Yeah, it is
I
very,
mean, I like the idea, but
I'm just trying to see
Yeah, I
where-
know.
no, I
I know.
understand. It very well could cost us more having to go out to bid and bid it out, putting out the advertising, the whole thing. It adds a cost to it, is what's their feeling.
I mean, do you feel that it's an undue burden with a lot of work? I mean, it's pretty much the same stuff every
No,
year.
because we just prep, and as I said, the flowers change and what you want, how
Yeah.
many baskets might change, so we just put it out, get the quote in, and if it's acceptable, the board agrees.
Okay.
That's typically
All right.
how it's been done for many years.
Well, thank you for looking into that.
Yeah, no, it's good to know about that.
Okay, and as we were just discussing, the budget meetings for 2024-25 are going to be upon us really soon, so I want the board to keep in mind, we're going to start those meetings in January. There is some questions I'm going to have going forward for that budget. The board has not come to a determination on how to calculate the sewer's responsibility on the overall other costs, and I need that before the budget meeting starts. So I presented one method of doing that. There was disagreement with using that method last year. So I'm looking for instruction for the board as to how they would like me to move forward.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that, I'd like, any other proposals for that, as to how that would be broken out, that, because what the guidelines were used were the state controller's guidelines. I think we need to have really strong supporting documentation as to why, so I think that whatever is proposed, just as an
Just
option.
before I even start
Yeah.
calculating it, how I'm going to look at it,
Yeah.
I need to know.
Yeah, because this was right from the state controller's
Yeah,
guidelines.
could you perhaps send us the material from our last discussion on that and
Sure.
add it to the agenda for the next meeting?
Okay, let's
Yeah.
put that down as an action, yeah.
And
that's one.
excuse my ignorance, so tell me, so these budget meetings, these are over and above our board meetings?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And how often do those occur?
Usually we start out every 2 weeks, and depending on the need, maybe shift it to every week. Depends on how quickly we
And
get
that's
to the
the full
numbers.
board?
That's the full board.
Yeah, yeah. And, because you've got a lot of pieces in place, I don't think it'll be as long and protracted,
Yeah,
potentially.
usually.
What may change it, though, is just, the whole idea of the long-term capital plan,
Right.
really nailing stuff down like that, the reserves. So that might be a different dynamic.
And this is open to the public, the public?
Oh,
hearing?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah, I am looking forward to having a discussion that is informed by the work in the long-term capital plan and the reserves that we have. I think it will be a different dynamic than what we've had in the past, and hopefully we've got a good foundation there to have productive discussions.
okay. I just want to get that out there,
Okay.
but before I start, and it's going to come upon me quick, I really, before I even start looking at the numbers, I need to know how to split it.
Yeah,
And I think everybody agreed, I would like to think everybody's in agreement that sewer should have a little bit more responsibility, I don't know, should have insurance, pay for the insurance in general fund. So we want to make sure we really iron that out, because I think it's an undue fair burden to general, in my mind.
Mhm. So everybody's on notice with that. And then, just for the record, the meetings generally start towards the end of January. We
Correct.
kind of let people get through the
We'll get that floated out so we can get some dates on the
Yeah.
calendar for everybody
Yeah.
and get everybody else
Just-
to run. And usually we try to do them like at 4 o'clock or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and keep it.
And we try to have hard stops, yeah.
It's
we
like
try to-
every other week? Opposite
Yeah,
the board
pretty
meeting
much.
Kind of thing?
Well, yeah. we'll
Yeah.
try.
And we try to have hard stops, so it's not, the marathon
Okay.
with calculators.
Thank you.
Real quick, Zach asked me to request from the board, wow, I've gone past my normal 5 minutes here. He would like to send Jason and Pete to a class. It's all day, it's on storm sewer, yes,
Thought it was,
New York State storm response.
Storm
Before, during-
response.
Yep, storm response. So it's $40 per person, it's an all day, and he just wants the board to go ahead and.
it's additional training for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where's it at? Close by?
Batavia.
Lying somewhere, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not in California.
Yeah.
No, anything that projected would have a lot more material.
So do you need a vote on that, or do we?
I'm going to ask the board to vote to approve it this time, and then I'm going to ask the board if they would feel comfortable deeming Zach and I the ability to approve training for employees up to $250.
Oh,
So we don't have to bring
Yeah.
$40 per person to you. That's really the cost of the class. These usually are minimal and they don't come that often,
yeah.
but at least then we can go ahead and sign them up and get them into these classes if they come
Okay, so
along.
the first, you're going to need a motion to approve
Yes.
specifically this. Anybody?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
I second.
Lisa Scott.
Lisa got the second.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes. And then on my request on the 250.
Can we have that written down as the agenda, please? Because I think that, well, I would generally support most of the training they do. I think that it raises questions about what the scope of training is, what applies to that kind of training. I guess it's just delegating to you to approve, but I think that if we're doing that administratively, it should be clear what the guidelines are, what kind of training is included. So I'd just like to see that written down.
Yep, no, it was brought to my attention that,
Okay.
it's kind of small potatoes for the board to, that we could do that for you.
When you're saying $250, is that $250 per person?
Yes, whatever class, and it's very rare. It's usually 40, 50, it could even be $100, whatever the board is comfortable with, just so we're not
It's just for the back and
Little
forth,
stuff. coming
because
to
the training is maybe 3 times a year,
if that.
maybe.
And sometimes there's just free trainings. And
Yeah, a lot of it's
I
free.
think as long as we're, I'd like to be clear that it's related to the current position that they hold,
Mhm.
and we consider other relevant positions within the DPW, but it's not just open-ended educational expenses.
No, usually we don't.
And you know what I'd like to also add when Zach does his report, if he could just put down, I sent so-and-so training for this one.
If you can provide
Yeah.
a training update.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think he usually does.
I
Yeah.
think he has. in the
Yeah,
past,
and even
but-
when he's attended.
Then this way, so we
Yeah,
don't feel
I think
no
it's just as a matter of
Okay.
course. Yeah.
And that's the end of Dorothea Wellington.
Yeah, really, sure.
Zach had a request that he had sent to the board regarding, it should have been part of maybe the bill pay, regarding the opposite, for the wreaths, for the holiday decorations with Bristol, so they could start the wreaths.
Yeah, there was a quote, and I think it was going back and forth to make sure you guys were good with the.
Yeah, I was fine with it.
It was
We
good.
wanted you to see it, because you're part of it too, so,
So I was waiting for instruction.
yeah.
Um,
Because the
I didn't know
the
if it was-
money's in the budget, it's
Okay.
a line item.
Required
So-
board approval or not.
Well, it's a line item in the budget.
Let me see if the board takes a break at any point, I can go run and see if I can find that quote
Okay.
for approval,
Everyone,
unless someone's got it in front of them.
Oh, let me see if I have it.
It's harder to pull up on your phone when
I
it's.
know, let me see if I have it on my iPad. Okay.
While the mayor's looking into that, just a quick question.
Oh, I got it.
You did, ooh, faster than me.
Okay, yep, what it was, I can go line item, the ending amount is $2,069.70. It's for 30 custom red bows, 30 to 40 inch outside diameter wreaths, $44 each, at $13.20. 3 to 60 inch wreaths at $150 each, so the ending day is a total of $2,069.70.
And who picks the bow color and all that stuff? Who picks
That's
the
been
decoration?
pre-picked as red, and that's the color that's usually used.
And these are, the bows are bows that are replacing how many, like existing bows. So we still have remaining bows that are being, yeah, I know where you're going with it.
It's been, the red scheme has been red and green for the bows and the wreaths and
Yeah.
other decorative.
And so that's already in the budget, is it?
Yes, the bows are in the
Yeah,
budget.
yeah.
So actually, we could have approved this, but it is over $69 over our approval. So if the board will approve
Oh,
that, for us,
$69
if
over.
we can go ahead and get those ordered.
How about a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the expenditure for holiday decorations.
I second.
Okay, roll call.
Okay, trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Coe,
Aye.
trustee Lampier,
Aye.
trustee Lickett,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you for bringing that up. I thought we were still in approval stage.
Mayor, it's also past 6, and if you want to take it to the public hearing.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So-
Let's just hang on here. Well, why don't we just set the public hearing right now for the short-term rental?
Want to do that?
You know,
Okay.
it's just, you know, and then we'll move the tree ordinance,
Okay.
because that'll be discussion.
Sure.
Okay, so next up is the setting a public hearing on November 14th for the extension of the moratorium on short-term rentals.
I make a motion to set a public hearing for November 14th for the extension of moratorium on short-term rentals. Do I have a second?
At 6 PM.
At 6 PM.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Coe?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, so we're going to go past the tree ordinance, go to our public hearings. First one up is the, Dorothea, do you want to bring that one up?
Catch up.
Oh, she's catching it.
Okay. All right. Yep, the non-municipal permits is the first one.
Is there any discussion from the board before we get in the hearing?
I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing
Okay, no discussion.
for proposed local law on non-municipal use permits.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Coe?
Aye.
Trustee Marshall? Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, the hearing is open. Is anybody wishing to speak from the public or online, or?
Yes.
David Ferris, 2711. I just would comment on the change. I don't think it's changed from the other draft. The Historic Preservation Board to limit that to only village residents. That's the,
Hold on, that's not the
It's
one.
not the one we're
Not
listing.
yet, Dave, that's the next one.
Yep.
That's okay.
Hold your fire.
Right now, it's the one about, yeah.
Okay. No, this is non-municipal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we'll get to the next one. Okay, is there anybody online?
We do, but no one's commenting.
Okay. Is there a
Make a
motion?
motion to close the public hearing
I
for
second.
the proposed local law on non-municipal use permits.
Second.
Okay.
Got it. Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Coe?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye. Okay, it's back to the board. Is there any discussion from the board?
I think it matches with everything we talked about
Yeah.
before.
We've kind of been there.
I think we catched this up quite a bit now.
Yeah, I think it's a step forward. I don't know if it's the law that I want in the future. I would rather have something that is a little more prescriptive and detailed, so that it's not just the board approval and then the approval from the code enforcement officer. I'd like to see it parameterized somehow so that it could be fully delegated, I think, in the future. But this does make things better, and having been on the boards for multiple years, I don't feel that my involvement either on the planning board when we're reviewing this type of material or on this board has really been that beneficial. I don't think it's really worth my time. And so I think it's worth delegating this somehow.
So when you say delegating it, are you thinking of delegating it to another board?
No, to the code enforcement
Just,
officer.
okay, so what we were
As is
talking about,
proposed in
okay.
the-
All right.
Basically, straight up giving them the power for this and removing it from both this board and or the planning board. Going one step further than what this does.
I believe so. I think that would make things more straightforward overall.
Well, at least we have a starting point.
Yeah, we
You
just
know.
have to check to see how it
Yeah,
goes.
yeah,
And if
see
we
how it
want
goes.
to change it, we,
You can always amend it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I make a motion to approve the new local law on non-municipal use permits.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Coe?
Aye.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay,
All right.
next up.
Board membership.
I make a motion to open the public hearing on board membership. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Oops, you got 2 seconds.
Oh,
Keep beating it.
Dave.
She tries.
I know.
All right. Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Coe?
Aye.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Hi.
Motion passes.
Okay, the hearing is open on the board membership. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak? Oh,
I
there
just
is.
have a question. I assume it's still on the HPV limits it to no village, no town residents, correct? As far as all village residents,
Mhm.
that's still the draft?
Moving forward.
That's the proposed law.
Right. I think that for that board should be reconsidered because uniqueness of skills of architects are not a lot of them, they're hard to get, and we need to incorporate the town if there's not an appropriate village person. But I think for that one board, I would make that exception for one non-village resident. I think it's a wiser choice. I think we'll run into problems as we go along. Historically, we've had to reach outside the village for that expertise, if you want to believe in history. So that's my comment.
Thank you. And you already have the name and address?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm aware.
Okay,
We're friends.
okay. Yes,
I'll make a comment too. Based on.
name and address, please, for the
Robert
record.
Corby, 7 Washington Avenue. Years ago, I had attended multiple sessions with Catherine Rock-Woodley, the attorney who worked for the Preservation League of New York State and SHPO, who wrote the model ordinance and assisted in several of the updates that have occurred since the original ordinance was written. It was strongly recommended that preservation boards have at least one professional, either a preservation planner or an architect on the board. My involvement with the HPB began in 1987 when I was first appointed to the HPB and served for 5 years before serving as mayor. I think over the history of the board that I've observed, I think the engagement of an architect or a professional on the board has produced much better results. There were times when we couldn't find an architect in the village. Roger Johansson was one example of a town architect who served on the village preservation board. But I agree with Dave's comments. I think there should be some language. So it's not a political one, but it's based on the need for professional qualifications, because I think that is an important need that will benefit professional deliberation by the HPB.
Thank you. Are there any comments online?
Can I just give one?
Excuse me one second, she's just going to check online.
No, I have no comments.
Just 1 second.
I just want to say, I recognize if we can hire an architect, the difference is the architect sitting as a board member, we're not paying for it. That's a big cost.
And there also is a consulting architect currently in place for the board as well, who happens to live in the village.
Which we pay for.
Yeah, as needed. I mean, case by case, and I don't believe they've been consulted this year. Am I correct, Jeff? I don't think they have
I'm
been.
sure I can say that.
Yeah. Dorothea, you would know if you've received
I'm
any
not aware of
invoice.
any
Yeah, there hasn't been any invoice. No.
I thought Maria, you,
Sorry?
what, that Maria?
She is the consulting architect to the current
Yeah.
board. Yeah,
She's an architect.
yeah.
I don't know if she did it this year.
She is.
I mean,
But
she was
I
on,
don't know if
Oh,
she's
she's
been paid this year.
She has not, based on the treasurer providing that
I'm
information.
unaware of any invoices from Maria.
She hasn't invoiced the board for anything. Yeah.
no, but I
She's
think that she was
available.
appointed,
Yes, she is.
so
yeah.
I don't,
Yeah, so there's a resource there.
Yes.
Yes, you're absolutely right, and a very good one. Yes,
But, I think Dave's point is that having an architect at every meeting gives continuous engagement in a way when a consultant comes in periodically, as you've just demonstrated, because the current consultant has billed for this year, you certainly get a much greater influence on the outcome by having a professional attending every meeting, architect or a preservation planner on the board.
So currently, do we have in our local law, it states that we have to have an architect on our historic preservation board?
No.
Okay, so we don't, so maybe that's somewhere, that if we agree with that, one of the very well good points taken, that maybe we need to incorporate that into the makeup of our historic preservation board, that there needs to be one architect.
and would that architect be only from the village or also from the town, as you know,
Right, then that
Dave
would, then
had
that would feed into,
recommended?
right.
In other words, it opens up, at least you have an opportunity to have,
Exactly, then maybe we say, if
You
there
know.
are two architects, one from the village, one from the town, the village one would, oversee that town one, but I think that that's a really very good point, and very well taken. Anyone have thoughts on that?
Perhaps, but should we close the public hearing first and bring it back to the board?
Okay,
Yeah, that's true. We still are open.
sorry about
Are there
that.
any additional comments from the public, either online or, okay. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I second.
Are you making a motion?
I'll make the motion. Sure. I'll push the envelope.
Thank you. Okay, trustee Lickett,
Aye.
trustee Lampier,
Aye.
trustee Coe,
Aye.
trustee Marshall,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, now it's back to the board for
So I
discussion.
do have
Yes.
one comment, as it turns out. I appreciate the comments from the public. I think that there is a significant benefit from having an architect, and I recognize that may not come from the village at times. I do see on the website that we currently have a member who is, I believe, from the town, who is an architect. And I would like to note that the legislation is written to be prospective so that current members are able to stay in place and those skills are still able to be utilized, which does give us some time if the board wishes to consider crafting a change to this legislation, which would allow for someone who is uniquely qualified, for example, with the credentialing as an architect, to be able to serve on that board inside or outside the village.
Go ahead.
I was a little bit of a non sequitur if you wanted to reply directly.
No, go ahead.
Quick question. I know, are there any open seats on the historic preservation board?
Yes.
So you have 4.
No, Carol, no, we appointed
We appointed one.
one.
Oh, that's right.
We
Yeah,
have one.
Carolina, you voted on
So
her.
we have one open seat.
No,
Oh.
I'm looking at the website now.
yeah, we have
Jeff Pollock is chair,
Yeah.
Virginia.
Charlie.
Jeff seats open, is Jeff seats open? Is Jeff's seats open?
Well, that's a good question,
Oh, yeah,
because they
Jenny's seat
weren't-
is open.
yes, those two seats are open.
that's true. They're just,
So
they're in holding.
They're in hold.
Mhm.
Oh, so there are 2
They're
seats
holdovers.
open.
Yes.
So Jeff and Virginia, and then there's Carol, and then who else?
Dan Olson.
Jan Olson and Krista
And
Brelsky.
Chris.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have 3 right now with a firm appointment, the other 2 are in
Holdovers.
holdover state.
And may I, along the same lines, is Christina Lanahan still the alternate as listed on the website?
Yeah, right at this
And I
time.
Yes.
happen to know she has a bachelor in architecture as well.
Mhm.
And she's a village resident, as far as I know.
Christina is a village resident.
Yes.
That's been for many
And with-
years.
With regards to applications that we've received for the HPV, I know, Mayor, you have the full authority to appoint or not to appoint, but have we received applications for the vacant seats on the HPV from village residents who are architects and have historic preservation experience?
I passed on the last
We have
round.
to-
We haven't had
We'd
a,
have to go back and.
we haven't
I mean,
had,
it's-
I submitted a resume.
Okay,
Oh,
so
that must have been a while ago then. Okay.
would you submit it again?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll submit it again.
Again, not suggesting anybody appoint
Yeah, I
anybody.
see where it's going.
No, I'm
I know.
simply suggesting that we
Okay.
have architects
Mhm.
in the village
And, you know, here's,
with preservation experience
yeah,
that would be qualified for a
Okay.
board like this.
so let's, and this is also because I've worked with other preservation boards in other municipalities. And they have had in their codes, architect or preservation planner, or a demonstrated expertise in the field through other means. So, you know, it's not necessarily the architectural degree. And I can give, actually, I think, a really good example of that right now, and that would be Jeff Pollock, who has served for 48 years on the Landmark Society of New York's board, and he has been president of the Landmark Society, I believe, on 2 or 3 different occasions. He also is an advocate on Capitol Hill for a preservation action lobby as well, and has helped with legislation. He also serves on the board of the Eastman House and is currently consulting in Los Angeles for another component of the Eastman House, or museum, I should say. They changed it to be located out there because of his expertise in the field. Is he an architect? No. Does he have incredible expertise? Absolutely. Unfortunately, he lives just over the village line now in the town, so he will ultimately be excluded, from this. So I just am using that as an example, going forward, that I don't want us to be so narrow. We always have an architectural consultant for the board as needed, but I think there's also tremendous expertise out there for people who have been absolutely dedicated in the field for years. And I would like the board to consider that as well.
I would just offer a counterpoint. Mr. Pollock, as well, many of the HPV members, some of them being alternates, who were not members of the village, did move to essentially supplant the LWRP determination of inconsistency from the Planning and Zoning Board. And members of the town, there was, I think, 2 of the 3, Mr. Pollock being one, and the chair of 75 Monroe, was a part of the process that opted to move the application forward for 75 Monroe. I'm not suggesting, with regards to the LWRP approval in the end, I'm not suggesting that he's not uniquely qualified. What I'm suggesting is that members of the town and members of the village have unique perspectives that are often different. Well, they still may well be with a historical or preservation mindset. It may not necessarily come from the same mindset as village residents.
I hear what you're saying, and I couldn't disagree with you more, honestly. I think these people volunteer hours of their time with not only, a volunteer board, but other organizations. The idea somehow that their interest level or their application of the code before them would be somehow reviewed in a different way. I'm uncomfortable even hearing that. I think these people have just been so dedicated. And I can tell you, Jeff Pollock worked for a very long time on helping to streamline and clarify the application for the HPV. He put in a lot of hours of work on that and did a lot of research for that on behalf of the village, So, I don't know, I feel a little uncomfortable with that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, yes,
Robert,
yeah.
you said in the motion.
Please keep your comments quick,
I will.
because it's back to the
This is
board.
an important point.
Yeah,
As an architect and as someone who served on multiple preservation boards, I served as an advisor to the Rochester Preservation Board, also for the city of Ithaca, the city of Albany, the city of Saratoga Springs. Architects have a skill that other people don't have, and I have a different perspective on that, because architects are trained in classical proportions, systems that define architecture to various different styles. And what the Preservation Board, successful applications that go forward, like say for the Flower Mill or some past project that I think was a great example that had a lot of input from the HPB, is that architects have training in proportions. They know what type of window is going to fit on an Italian house, but wouldn't fit on a Queen Anne building like Town Hall. That's why an architect is important, and they have a skill that other people that may just have a passing interest, and especially administrators in preservation don't have that skill. Many preservation planners don't really have that skill. So I think there is a unique quality that architects bring to preservation boards, and I know that for a fact because of my own professional experience working in a variety of public environments with design review.
thank you. Okay, it is back to the board. Do we want to, where are we going with this at this point? It's come back to the board. Is this something you all want to reconsider and direct Jeff to do something? Justin?
Well, I mentioned on the last piece of legislation too that, well, it isn't the legislation I would like to see forever. It's the legislation that moves us towards a common goal. And I think that with the wording of the current legislation that makes this prospective, with seeing that we have a couple of people listed on the board right now, and maybe 3 with architectural experience, perhaps, I think that we're well covered for the moment. This is fundamentally about making sure that people who invest in having a village government and living in a village are represented on the boards by people who live in the village. And I think that the legislation does ensure that those boards are well represented by village residents and run by village residents. And I think that's the right way to go. So I would like to, I will make a motion that we adopt the legislation in front of us relating to board memberships. And additionally, aside from the motion, I'll just mention that we could always direct our attorney to help us craft other legislation that allows for an architect outside of the village.
This gets us started, basically, is where you're going. Okay. So there's a motion, okay, we have a second, roll call, please.
And I would like,
A comment? Okay.
thank you. And that is that in the information that was passed to me by village residents, it was overwhelmingly supportive of having villagers represented on village boards. So I wanted to put that in the record.
Okay, so we have the second.
I kind of have one more comment. I would also like to reiterate what Justin said and as well as what Lily said, and I would like to, moving forward in honor of our residents that have spoken tonight, look for legislation that does put an architect on the board.
Okay,
That's it.
okay, so we have a motion and a second, roll call, please.
Okay, trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Motion passes. Okay, next up. Where are we here? Oh, well, should we go back up to, why don't we just quickly do the retirement resolution? Because that's straightforward, that's more administrative.
Sure, I lost my agenda along the way here.
And it would be a quick vote, because
We
two
were
were,
time whether or not I've been directed to do something. I don't think I heard
No.
them to do anything.
No.
Okay,
not at this point,
all right.
but don't hold your breath.
Dorothea, can we put that on the agenda to discuss that again, that we couldn't help Jen figure out how to move forward to propose something to have an architect on our preservation board? Thank you.
Okay. New York State retirement resolution, when a board member decides if they want to be a part of the retirement system.
We're skipping over what's on the agenda previously.
Well, tree ordinance?
Oh, tree ordinance.
Yeah, but I was going to say, hang on, the resolution should be quick, am I right?
Yes.
It's just, this is just a quick administrative action, and then we're going back to the tree ordinance.
There is one correction. I had the terms wrong for trustee
Before
Coe.
we begin, if we're recusing ourselves on that matter for the vote, we should leave the room and then for discussion, I suppose.
You get a break. Nice.
You don't think so, Jeff?
I mean,
As long as you abstain from comment.
you're abstaining, I mean, there's no,
We want to see a little stretch.
they want a break anyway, it's a nice night, they're going to go outside.
I see how.
I know.
Okay, there is a
Okay.
correction. I had the wrong terms
So
on
this is
the agenda, on the resolution. The other part of this is, I didn't put on this, their social security number, NYSER ID.
Right.
I'm sorry, that's not public record.
Mhm.
So, but this needs to be posted up on our website. It also has to go to New York State Retirement. And this is a standard practice. Anytime a trustee decides they want to be, or a board member, that they want to be part of the retirement system.
I'll make a motion to approve with corrections as provided,
And then go ahead with the resolution.
and go ahead with the resolution.
You got it. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion
See,
passed.
that was quick, now we're done. Okay, they had a very short break. They had a very short break. See, you didn't make it to Thursdays. You had to come back. Okay.
Are you sure?
Really. Okay, next up is the discussion on the village tree ordinance. Okay, let me get back up to that. Okay. And Jeff, you made some corrections on that.
Is there not any attempted report? I'm not sure.
Well, I think you got all of them.
Let's see.
Oh, I had, this is under definition of a tree. And I remember we had this discussion, but I think I wasn't clear enough. Where it says the definition of a tree, see where he's added it in blue on your sheet? Okay. The definition of tree in this local law and the protections of this local law shall not include non-native trees or invasive trees. I thought it should not include invasive trees, because there are non-native trees that we have that essentially kind of neutral in the environment, that was sort of my takeaway on that. Was there a different understanding with the rest of the board? In other words, we may want to save some nice non-native
Yeah,
trees.
I
We have like
agree.
London plane
Yeah.
trees and, there's
I
other
agree.
trees that, do you see where I'm going with that? So we would just, we would just strike the non-native. And, yeah, okay,
Yeah, that's the resolution of the board.
okay.
Certainly.
Okay, we're all good on that, okay. And then we need to decide the entity, going back down to 192-3 prohibitions. I'm thinking of Board of Trustees at this point, we can always amend it, but let's start with our board,
Yeah.
frankly. I think that gets us going.
And
Because
let's
it's new.
see what works and doesn't work.
Right.
Exactly, because it's new legend, it's
Yeah,
new, so
so just.
we're all in agreement. Any thoughts on that? Just because it's brand-new legislation, I think it should come back to our board.
I do have some concerns on this. They're more general ones. I don't know if we want to go to public comment first, or if we want to offer all of our comments up front. Thoughts?
Well,
Anybody want to?
I mean, what's your thought on this one? I mean,
Sure.
just keep going.
Yeah, I expressed some hesitation about this legislation before, and I think that in the last meeting, I suggested that the legislation and the restrictions on cutting private trees doesn't apply to things like invasive trees. You should be able to cut those without any issue. But I'm still concerned that overall, essentially this requires people to go in front of our board to cut down a tree. And I feel like that's I don't think I'm comfortable with that at this point. I did look at a couple of other pieces of legislation. I looked at Fairport, I looked at Scarsdale in Westchester, and both of those were less restrictive than what we're currently proposing. Scarsdale's was quite extensive. It did allow for invasives to be removed, as we've adapted our code to do. It also allows for emergency conditions to have removal without having to come to the board, which I think is good. It also allows, going even further, it allows a couple of trees greater than 6 dBH, which is diameter of breast height, so it's a significant tree, and less than 2 feet dBH can be removed in one 12-month period without notifying the village. They do have some protection on endangered tree species and heritage tree protection on top of that, but essentially a lot of the trees that are not remarkable are able to be dealt with privately without going in front of the board. And actually, in fact, they never go in front of the board. This is dealt with administratively in Scarsdale. So the code enforcement official, I believe, is delegated with the responsibility of approving based on a number of criteria that are enumerated in the code. So while their code is more complex, I feel like it's significantly less burdensome for most of the cases that people have run into. The comprehensive plan, and ultimately this board is tasked with doing what was listed and what the community wants, and one of the best ways to determine what that is in the comprehensive plan. And the comp plan calls us to look at legislation for heritage trees, which is a very small subset of what is currently under consideration. So with all of that said, I am not in favor of the current legislation as it stands, and it would have to be significantly alleviated for me to be in support of it, along the lines of some of the things that I've mentioned. But I don't think that we're there right now.
Okay, thank you for that.
Just, can I just, Justin, so I appreciate the structure of really tapping into the comprehensive plan, but remember the comprehensive plan is a village town-wide. You're talking about the village.
The village comprehensive
The
plan.
village, okay, I'm
specifically,
sorry.
yeah.
Could you share with me how they define a heritage tree?
I'm not sure that I can entirely. I believe that it's, there's some kind of a registry of remarkable trees is the way that it's done often. I did look at Canandaigua. They have kind of an optional heritage tree program where you can nominate a tree and then put it to heritage trees. we could look at different things, but I think also, they're excluding the feet that are more than 2 feet at breast height in terms of the diameter, and those do fall under the review of the code enforcement official.
I could speak to a little bit to heritage trees, having worked in other municipalities on codes like this. Heritage trees can be designated because they an event occurred by that tree as part of that sort of site, the historic site perhaps. It can be the variety of the tree, particularly the age of the tree, the growth of the tree. There's a number of considerations. It just depends on how you look, parameters, So it's never just one thing necessarily for a heritage tree. An example would be perhaps in front of, now it's the Fleischman Torres house, the massive old trees. Those could be designated as heritage trees. One, they are significant in terms of size, also age, and are unique in that respect to our village. And, let's say there was, I don't know, the Indians camped under the tree or something, in other words, it's part of perhaps in an historic context that relates directly to the tree. An example of that would be on East Avenue. When you go down East Avenue, Council Rock, that was where the Indian Council met. So
Share with me then sort of the perspective right now. This is more all-encompassing. To what degree do we want to think about a heritage tree type design plus added other trees, maybe bigger than 6 inches in diameter? Is it 2 feet in diameter? Maybe not that much, circumference or whatever. Like something that is maybe a little bit more hefty of a tree.
Than a 2 inch or than a 6 inch.
Right, in this case, 6 inch diameter. That's not necessarily a very big.
That's something different though, and I'd like to speak to that. I think what we're looking at with this piece now, heritage trees, I think should be added in. It should be a whole component. And actually, I believe there is already something. Is there anything in the code, I believe, on something? There isn't, there's nothing. Okay, so what we're looking at now, and if you look at essentially the sort of the narrative in the beginning, that findings and intent, it's sort of like our mission statement. Why are we doing this? Well, we have an incredible canopy that's village-wide, and the canopy and habitats don't know borders. In other words, it is a holistic element of our village. And so there's large trees that contribute to it. There's maybe smaller trees coming up, understory trees perhaps, that contribute to the overall canopy and health and vibrancy of our community. And vibrancy in the sense that we appreciate our trees, we love walking with the shade. It also creates habitat. We have, the enjoyment of it as well. So when I've worked on codes like this with other communities, it was, and I'm very comfortable with how this is written at this point. And I appreciate, Justin, what you're saying, but I think we're small. We're small. Every tree counts here, and we also have made a commitment as a climate smart community to really have best practices and really protect what we have. And all of these trees, the natives and certainly the non-invasive ones, are a whole part and parcel of an asset for everybody in this community. And I think that's the underpinning of this. The heritage tree component, I think, we absolutely should address as well. Because that's saying these trees are special for a whole other set of reasons. It's great they're a tree, but they're the biggest tree, or they're the oldest tree, or they're a tree that has really incredible significance to the history of our village. An example of that might be the oak tree on Boughton, and that was something I know you had tried to research. There was some discussion that they may have been planted right after the victory tree after the Civil War. So that tree certainly at any point can be designated as a heritage tree. Sadly, it's dying. But I think what we have in front of us now is really solid and really makes a statement as a community that we want to protect the entire canopy. And I think to start parsing that way, I think we're missing the point.
Justin, I appreciate your opinion. But I have to say, along the lines of the mayor, because, coming from historic preservation, I look at trees like I look at our historic structures. It makes the aesthetic of a village. So to me, just like my house, even though I own it, I can't do anything I want to it because it's under preservation. As an owner of a historic tree, or even a large, beautiful tree on the property that my community walks by and enjoys and sees the color change, I feel that that should also be protected as a community asset. Not just me as a private person, but I think that the community also. So I look at, that's why I kind of said a public view, because to me, our trees are part of our property, just like our home is, or just like a structure.
But I'd like to talk, because you were saying only trees in public view, was that it?
Well,
I was trying to remember
that's
what
kind of how I
it was.
thought, because, that's the wording we use for historic preservation, a public view, meaning that the public enjoys
But
it.
if you look at the canopy in and of itself holistically, I have major canopy all through my backyard. And if we have every person just cut down trees in their backyards because they can, that completely alters
Sure. And
our
right.
canopy in our
Right.
community.
Well, I would think that you would be able to see those from.
Well, no, but I think, again, I think we kind of have to, we have to own this. We have to say, yes, this is the right thing to do for our community. This is for the public good. The trees that I have in my front yard, I have beautiful oak trees. They sequester carbon, not just for me. They sequester carbon for the entire community, and they help the planet, and they create oxygen, not just for me, but for everybody. This is for the public good. This, to me, is sort of, I just think it's such a positive thing. I just don't see the downside. Okay, you have to come before the board if you want to cut a tree of a certain size. Well, then I think there's an educational opportunity as well. Why do you? Well, because you're taking out a tree that's part of a whole canopy in our community. And we have plenty of provisions in here for, the waivers for, you can take it here, or you can do, I think this is on pretty solid footing, honestly. Yeah, Dave, did you have a comment?
No, go ahead. Thank you.
No, okay, yep.
Yeah, I definitely share many of the values that are discussed here, and I think that a lot of our residents do as well. And a testament to that fact is that we do have such a great canopy that we're discussing here. And that's been achieved in the absence of legislation protecting it. So I think that's, I'm not against all legislation that will protect this. I just think that the currently proposed form is a step too far.
Justin, it hasn't been achieved right across the street from me. In the last 6 months, we've had two beautiful trees
I know.
come down for reasons of, I don't even know.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tried to find out, and those were huge, gorgeous trees, and now I've got a huge barren in front of me. And if you look halfway down Locust, there's another one coming out. And I mean, just people are taking trees out left and right, and I'm very concerned.
I agree with you. I think that's an issue. Bobby, I know you had your hand.
Yeah, I think. there's a-
Name and address, because this is a
Robert
new
Covey,
item.
7 Washington Avenue, tree geek here. I think you have to look at the history and what the problems have been. And I think there's different types of trees. I think one, you might want to make qualifications, because there are some native trees that are terrible that people should be able to take out. For example, a cottonwood or a box elder. They're fast-growing trees that become a hazard because they fall and they can be dangerous. And it's just in the nature of the tree itself. So I think you want to distinguish between hardwoods. And, there are some coniferous hardwoods that are like a white pine or Suga canadensis or an Norway spruce.
It's in the code, though, that they can show that the trees could create damage. So I hear where you're going. I agree with you. I hear where you're going.
And because there's other situations like a walnut tree. If you have a walnut over your house, the amount of debris that falls on your roof, and it can be damaging to the house. So I think what I didn't see in the code when I read it, which I think you might want to add, is there are things like heirloom trees. I walk the village every day, and there are, you brought up in front of the my grandparents' house with bed and breakfast, that copper beech is a beautiful tree. Those are the trees that really have an impact when they come down. And I think you might want to distinguish between the trees that are large, that meet a certain circumference requirement and are in a visible location, because that impact is very different than if someone on the back of their property takes out a walnut tree because it just got too many walnut trees.
Or if they take out a copper beech on the back of their property.
Well,
See, in other words, this starts to parse it. I hear where you're going, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think we're all in agreement, honestly.
But I think, like, to go right where you're going, Lisa, I think if you go to Carl and Carl's house, that big wall, you can see that from Monroe Avenue, that's a giant tree.
Yeah, but it had to start somewhere though, Bob. If they took that out before it became that big tree, it would never would have got there.
Right.
So I don't want to take.
I think you just want to have some safeguards, because, when there's an ice storm, or when if you have a windstorm, and you've got so many trees that are coming down, I think that it might be cumbersome to have people have to come to.
Well, we have that.
No, it's
we have
already
that
in
here.
code. It's already in code.
That's like the emergency.
Yeah, public
and the
safety,
damage and the-
absolutely.
Yeah, it's in there.
No, you're all raising good points, honestly.
And realistically, we've never had anything. So I think that we try it, and if we get inundated with all these crazy, like, people wanting to take down trees, and we find it's cumbersome, then we can relook at this. But right now, we have nothing. Our trees are out there vulnerable to anybody who feel like taking it down. Somebody doesn't want to rake leaves, somebody wants more sun in their yard, whatever it is. Right now, we have very vulnerable trees in our small quaint village, and I think that we need some kind of protection. So I would like to start somewhere, because this has been talked about for years, you know that, Bob. This tree ordinance thing has been talked about, and we need to do something, and then we can revisit it, and we can change it if we need to, but let's do something.
I just, I agree. I
Okay,
think
one
we
last
all
comment, and we're
agree.
going to bring it back. Yeah.
Yeah, the urban forest is a great thing, and you're in the right direction. I just think you hit what is the real problem, and I think it's the heirloom trees that are visible that really need protection.
But that's something I'd like the board to direct Jeff to me. Well, let's look into the specifics of designating heritage trees, because I think that is an important component.
As an addition?
Yeah. I mean, we certainly could pass it, but maybe, I guess it would be in the same ordinance, though. It really would, it should be in the same ordinance.
Well,
What are your thoughts on that?
if you have that, you have this ordinance
Yeah,
that protects heritage trees.
Right.
it already does, but I like the idea, but maybe it would have been
So-
historic code.
If you want to go less than this ordinance,
Right.
then you would be heritage trees and some other definition.
Right. So right now, heritage trees are covered.
Yeah, they are covered just by fact of this
Right.
type of tree. Yeah, Jake.
In general, I think my preference is to have a tree ordinance. And whether or not it's 6 inches or 8 or 10 or something, and obviously you need to give trees time to grow, and to a degree, they're going to grow and people aren't going to come down, and eventually they're going to get big enough where they stick around. I'm okay with the board receiving the requests. I think the request, the flexibility of it provides for quite a few outs, right? We'll learn fast enough if it's a burden.
Right.
My hope would be that it doesn't appear to be a burden, and we can just quickly put this to the planning board rather than the board of trustees. I think the planning.
Board first.
I
I'd rather
don't
mind
think
early.
so. We'll do it now.
Like,
Yeah.
early on, I don't mind
The way
seeing
we
a
do that.
few.
Yeah, and then we make
see
that
how it
Then we'll make
works.
the decision if we think that we can let it go.
The intent of this, I think, has been clearly defined and in support with the comprehensive plan. In general, I think this is the type of thing a planning board could do, and possibly even down the road, we put some greater flexibility for the building inspector to make some decisions on trees less than certain diameters, and only other trees then goes before the planning board, right? So I think it's a little bit of a work in progress, and we won't really know, to a degree, some of the reactions from residents. I also think you're going to have some trees that come down from residents that don't even know this is going to get enacted, should it get enacted, right?
Well, there's an educational component with our community, very much
Correct.
so.
And if we don't communicate it well, it can hit some people in the face real quick, and all of a sudden we have fines, right? Anyway, one other just quick comment, this is in the section 3. If we have a bunch of trees that are 6 inches in diameter, all near each other, does D3D allow for sort of proximity, right? So let's say somebody's got a backyard.
Which site, which,
3D.
Okay.
Let's say one property has 6 trees of 6 inches in diameter, and none of them are particularly healthy, and they're encroaching on each other, and they just want to take a few of them down. Does the character, that D sentence, the character established at the proposed site of
What
the
page you
rule,
want?
Oh, you're 192-4.
yeah, 192.3.
Section 3, okay, now I'm with you, okay.
Okay.
if you have a bunch of trees, again, 6 inches in diameter, real close to each other, where they frankly should be thinned out, right, and one of them should come down.
That's provided for.
Is that what D is providing for?
But also, if you want to take the tree down, if,
Vegetation.
an arborist could even support that recommendation to thin out the trees if in fact they were, too close to each other.
So you're saying
But
it's
the arborist
vegetation
costs.
management practice, is that what
Right.
that defines?
So is existing vegetation management practices,
Is that what that means?
is that what that
Giving
means?
trees a way to breathe so that they can grow better?
Yeah,
Right.
yes, it's like best
Yeah.
practices for managing your forest.
Yeah,
And here's why, I don't want a resident to have to come in and us to say, go hire an arborist. I'd rather have them come in and say, this is what I'm thinking, and then we know well enough, and if we feel like we need to hire an arborist.
Well, we did have that, I brought that to the board, I think it was a couple of meetings ago, that we may want to, just as we hire a village engineer, at some point, hire a village arborist as needed, somebody kind of on call, because we are, as Lisa said, this is the first time, this is, we're putting our pieces in place here, and so that may be an additional step, and also because we're a tree city, that's also a positive step as well, in terms of best practices to be a tree city. So, I hear where you're going, and I think it is covered this
Okay,
way.
great.
Yeah,
In E, in addition to roads and highways, should we put rail? The impact of any removal or alteration upon existing screening of any road, highway.
or rail, because
or
the
rail.
train track. you mean?
Right.
yeah, but what CSX can cut, how far,
Oh, right.
yeah, if they already do the cutting.
Well, I know there was some at the gas station recently that opened it up, but I think those are all invasives.
But CSX, I think, can cut, I can't remember what the distance is, Jeff.
Whatever the right of way is.
Yeah,
Yeah, they cut all the way through, and they just come through and pack it back, so we would have no control of that component,
So they take care of that.
right. Also possibly behind the District Pub and JoJo's, I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's probably some that are farther away from the rail that they've let grown up to the berm that exists.
Mhm.
Do we want to allow, what is this, the decision, the impact of any removal or alteration upon existing screening?
I see where you're going, because you're thinking the tree screening the railroad,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
I see where you're going, yeah,
So
yeah.
if by taking it all down, I mean, I don't necessarily mind seeing a railroad, but,
Yeah, but they also block noise.
Yeah, I know, I would say they don't want to hear it, even
Well,
though
right,
what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of, I don't know. It was just one other mode of transportation that wasn't included in those two things that.
Well, I mean, we have railroad going through the village, I guess. Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can put it in there and still disregard it.
Jeff, would that be, well, I don't know that would be limiting in any, I think,
Why wouldn't you put it in there?
yeah, it's not going to
Why
limit
wouldn't
it,
you,
it's just,
right.
why not? It's not going to,
Yeah, so edit them.
because whatever CSX cuts, they're going to cut,
Right.
Okay, so
Road,
that's another,
rail, or highway.
Okay. Is there any flexibility in this code that the condition by which we would allow somebody to take the tree down, where we could have a conditional replacement different than what is prescribed in this code?
are you looking at the number 4 then?
I got it.
That the same tree, the same as the tree being replaced of the same or similar species. So this wouldn't apply. I just want to make sure that there's clarity with this. Maybe I'm not speaking directly to what you're asking, but if they remove an invasive, we don't want them to replace it with the same or similar species.
Mhm.
And I don't know that there's.
Yeah, we have it
Right.
like native or non-invasive.
Okay, we are item number, section 4, under
That page there.
192-4.
Yeah, Mayor, see, I think it's immediate replacement of such tree by one or more native, non-invasive trees.
Okay, so you stuck that
Yeah,
in.
So I think we
Okay.
covered that, because it can't be replaced with an invasive. It's got to be a native or non-invasive.
Yeah, I think I said that last time.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, I missed the blue part.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
that's in there. Yay,
I
done.
think the last sentence is the one that responds to my question.
Okay.
Number
Which
4?
is,
Number
Of number
4?
four.
Okay,
so it says replace it with one of total caliper substantially the same as the tree being replaced. That's total caliber. So that's,
Where you are, where are you?
I'm still on 4.
Yeah,
So you take down a 10-inch tree and you
Okay, yeah,
can
yeah.
put up 5 2-inch trees. Is that right?
Oh, I see what you mean, because you mentioned this.
Yeah, isn't
before.
that what, I
Yeah,
think we talked about that, right?
right.
And thinking that it would be, if it was a significantly large tree, it would be prohibitive for people to try to replace it. Wasn't that-
Gives the board the option of having more than one tree. It doesn't require the board to have more than one tree.
Oh, so it's an option, it's not a must, it's a,
No,
it's a,
it says,
There is the or.
yeah,
Yeah, so, okay,
Okay,
so the way I read that
creates
is,
the-
we could
okay.
accept the total caliber, or some other reasonable condition that's directly related to the loss of that tree.
yeah, okay.
So we can dictate, to a degree, the terms that would suggest somebody could take that down, which may be something less than that caliber.
I look at it more as a negotiation with the applicant
Sure.
to say, what do you want to do, what do you think's right? And what the board is going to say what they think is right, and we're going to meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
Okay,
or no.
Or not.
so there's more flexibility
Right.
essentially with the way this is written, is where we're going.
It gives the
Okay.
property owner more flexibility.
And remind me as well, Jeff, if where in here was, if they did put something in, and so let's say they took down a maple, and instead of having them put in another 10-inch maple, we just say, hey, put in a 4-inch maple 10 feet farther away so you can build the accessory dwelling unit or whatever,
Mhm.
right? And that tree is forever protected until it hits the same, until it becomes part of this
Ordinance.
ordinance, right?
Mhm.
Until it hits that. Is that in here?
I don't think so.
Okay, that would be my concern, because if they put in a 2-inch tree and we give them the authority to do that instead of a 10-inch,
And they cut down.
and then they cut it down an inch later, like 6 months later, because it's not 10 inches, or 6 inches.
Oh, no, I read it in a different ordinance, because there is a provision for that they have to maintain the tree. Oh,
Until it gets.
yeah, it was something like that, honestly, it was something like that
That
they,
needs to be in there.
Because
oh, I may have bookmarked that ordinance, I know where you're going with
here's the
that.
challenge, right? The or reasonable conditions, okay, fine, we put in some conditions.
Yeah.
But if every single time we have to remember, and that tree has to stay in place in the ground
Mhm.
until such a time that it's
Right.
subject to the same ordinance.
And they can say, oh, you never told me.
And that's going to
It should
get
be
lost
written.
in time.
Right.
That's why I think it should be
It should be in the ordinance.
identified. And what you could say, you could even go so far as to say that any replacement tree is
Yeah.
considered a heritage tree.
Or any replacement tree would be covered by this particular ordinance
Would be
as,
automatically covered by this particular
Yeah.
ordinance.
that's close
Something
to,
like
that's
that.
close to an ordinance, oh, I hope I bookmarked that ordinance.
But if it's under 6 inches, it wouldn't be.
No, just
Unless you call it-
regardless of
unless you call it
diameter.
heritage.
Replacement tree.
Unless you name it a heritage.
Or just say
No,
regardless of
No, it's
diameter.
covered by this
Oh, I
ordinance,
see.
it's only
Anyway,
covered.
Okay.
Heritage trees are covered in this ordinance anyway.
Yeah, okay.
Jeff, does that, he's writing, he's on it, I can tell.
He's really serious. Yeah.
Do we want to ask the public if they have any insight at this time?
Look, they can chime in
Yeah,
anytime.
anybody have any
We're just
thoughts
having-
over here?
We're just having a discussion.
Can we share some thoughts?
Of course, absolutely.
David Ferris, 27 Monroe, and Jim Walter, I think you're also to speak, is at 25 Monroe, come to my comments. I think we all have the same goal to preserve our treescape, but I think we're missing it here. I see a solution in search of a problem, but I don't know what the problem is. And all I'm here is regulate and not educate. How do you track this stuff? Just listening to discussion just drives me crazy to think how this is going to track out. I see lots of litigation. I see tremendous expense to residents and the village to try to follow this through. Let's start at the top, let's slow walk this, let's focus on heritage trees, the most critical, and draft something for that. But this other here, I mean, so I've been in my house 37 years. We've had to take down 10 trees surrounding our property, around our property. They were diseased and reasons. But here you're going to regulate, you're going to plant a new tree, you're going to make that a heritage tree and regulate it. In language, I just find lots of problems with language, no offense to council, but it just, you get into the thicket. Certified by a certified arborist or licensed professional. I'm a licensed professional, I'll give opinions on trees. That's the way the code reads. That's obviously not the intent. One criteria is the effect of the removal or alteration thereof on ecological systems. I could deny cutting any tree in the village on that basis. Birds nests there, butterflies. I mean, this is just going to be litigation and fighting and semantics. And I worry if someone buy a house and you're going to say this 4-inch tree was a heritage tree put in 5 years ago by the prior owner? Really? And we're going to fine them $2,000 possibly? So let's back up a second. Let's focus on education. I have not seen any property in the village, and I'm aware of, that someone has gone in and done something to devalue their property. I'll pick 2 properties as examples that I don't think fit. South Main Street, they took down a number of trees. I think they beautify their yard, they create a recreational place to a fire pit. Others would disagree, but I'm not going to regulate the interior of someone's yard if they have to agree. The Masonic Temple is another example. There were trees along the commercial side of that property, backing up. What they planted gives them a buffer from a parking lot and visual of buildings. What they've done in that yard and other plantings, I applaud them. But, to think that we're going to regulate somebody's tree because we like it. People plant new trees. I might not want to wall that tree because it's toxic for vegetables and gardening. I might want to replace it with something entirely different. So I think this really is missing the mark, and it's going to be a lot of expense. If I didn't get an arborist every time that hit a tree top that was overhanging my house, the big trees that eventually diseased and came down, I'd be spending thousands of dollars. Arborists aren't getting free written reports. Now, what troubles me also, we're spending time in this. Mr. Walter and I live on Monroe Avenue. I'm now into the 4th year of a tree taken down, and the 3rd year trees in front of our property on a major arterial entranceway to our village with traffic calming, pedestrian safety, and no replacement. Let's focus on the trees along our public ways first and preserving those as well as the heritage trees. That's where the energy should be going at this point. I think this is very complicated to get into the nitty-gritty of 6-inch trees. I really do. So on the Monroe Avenue, I hope those trees be planted. I've said before, I hope it'd be variety. The 10 trees that came down around my property were all maple trees. That's the point arborists have said, you don't plant the same because Dutch elm disease came, ash trees. We don't want something that everything will disappear at one time. So if a tree does have a fight, we still have escape of trees along there with something else now being placed in. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. The goal is the same, but I don't think regulating to this degree is the answer.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks so much.
That's a
Thanks
lot
for your
of-
input.
A lot of good insights, thank you.
Okay.
Jim, did you want to say anything?
Dave and I had talked about this ahead of time, and I think he covered just about everything that I've got listed here. There's some ambiguity in here that.
Whoop, hang on one
Just
second.
say your
Name
name.
and address, I-
Yeah, name and
Walter, 25 Monroe.
Thank you.
So Dave and I have talked, and I think he's addressed most everything I've got in here. I did have a question about the hiring of an arborist or a professional. I've cut down, I don't know, lots of trees in my lifetime. All of a sudden, I've got to go hire somebody to do what I'm perfectly capable of doing. Plus, a 6-inch diameter is an unbelievably small tree in my mind, so.
Jim, did you, I'm not aware that we said that in order to cut a tree down, we had to hire an arborist. Is that,
That's how I read it.
Yeah, so
that's,
this
which
is
number is that?
2G. So the
Under which?
application itself required the recommendation of a certified arborist or the tree service that will be performing the removal. Now, my understanding is you could just simply list the tree service that you're going to have remove it. You don't have to hire.
I don't think it was an undue
No.
burden on the homeowner, the way this is written.
It wasn't go get an arborist.
No.
It was go get an arborist or tell us who's going to take it out.
And I could tell you that I'm going to take it out?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
I
yeah.
misread this. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there was one other section that did suggest, and this is to Dave, your comments. The decision,
I'm sorry, number 3, if I go to 192-5, number 3.
192.
permit for tree removal.
But that is
Only a
for,
certified arborist or experienced tree service shall be permitted to remove or substantially alter the habit of a tree within the village of Pittsburgh. So I can't trim my trees, I can't cut down a tree.
You'd have to become an arborist.
Okay, but I still.
oh, I see where this is,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, okay,
So
good.
this
Thank you.
is, but that's like, having, I don't know, first.
Oh, I see it,
come
number
in.
3, okay.
Yeah, so, right, that's I don't know, good point, good catch.
That's a good
So,
point.
okay, yeah, no, this is a good point.
That's a good
So,
I'm
Because we were just thinking, you get your tree service in to cut the tree down, but I hear where you're
Well,
going.
certainly for some substantial tree, but we're talking 6 inches, I mean.
Well,
Yeah,
that's,
right.
okay, so we should probably put something in to allow for that. How would we
Well, what
do
you
that?
could say
Yeah.
is you could have that condition only for like a heirloom or heritage tree, but this is including everything. Frankly, I think that if somebody comes before the board and this tree is substantial, we may say one of the conditions of approval is we'd like to have an arborist report, and maybe it's only imposed upon somebody if the tree is substantial and large, but in general, I think we could just take that out and only have the arborist be something that's part of a condition of approval if needed.
Think about that. I'd want to think about that. Because I think we could add language in. I don't know that we want to remove the whole section because of the nature of what we're trying to do.
I mean, to a degree, this is in there because you want RG&E to have to, you want this to apply to RG&E when they come in and strip things.
They just don't.
So I think we need some work on that.
I think we do too, and I think, thank you for raising that, because I think it's not clear enough. Maybe we need to do a little more work on that, yeah.
Dave, you had a good point as well, which is, hey, what if you have some trees that are dying? I mean, I just want to take them down. I don't want to have to replace them, they're dying, right? So either you let them stay there and be a problem so you don't have to replace them, or you get them taken out. And I believe, and everybody correct me if I'm wrong, section 3A, this is 192-4-3A, the condition of a tree with respect to disease and danger of falling, proximity, et cetera, that would just let us straight up approve it.
It had to hit my house twice.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't need to replace it, so saying that, go ahead.
No, because I see where you're going, like, if there's a public safety issue or danger, your tree goes, it just goes, and the building inspector would be part of that, he would just say, that has to be, that branch is hitting your house, or it's cracked, or it's gonna fall, that is covered, that, the tree goes, even if it's,
Doesn't have to come out.
yeah, it would never come before the board, because there's an
Well,
immediacy.
it has to, according to this.
No.
No,
That's.
no, it's covered in another
Still
section.
then are subject to being penalized if they're wrong.
If they're wrong, it's not a safety issue?
Yeah, what if you say it's not? They said, I took it down because it was like worrying the wind and trees go.
This is going down a rabbit hole.
It was okay, you didn't come before us. This is where you're gonna get into litigation, really.
This is, hang
I
on,
mean, and to put it in time frame too. The tree that was in front of my house, half of it came down and fell between our houses, fortunately, missed our houses, came up many feet. The rest of the half of the tree was hanging on whatever, and it took the village nearly 4 months to take that tree down with huge liability, that tree went down over Monterey Avenue in cars. I'm not faulting because it was hard to get an arborist to do it. So I just say, well, we'll write up a code thing, and then immediately answer this danger thing, we're finding you
that's something different.
$500 a day or up to $2,000. It's not realistic.
Okay, I'm going to call your attention to 192-6, removal of trees. Article 1, any tree growing on real property which constitutes a danger to the health, safety, and public welfare of residents of the village of Pittsford or the general public shall be removed, or the habit thereof altered by the owner of said real property as directed by the building inspector, made with advice. This happens all the time in our village, and in fact, what we find, and this is something, if Steve were here, he would share this, oftentimes there are dangerous trees on people's property where they do not take care of it. And so he contacts them to say, this has to be managed, this is a public safety issue. So I think it's coming from that direction, but am I correct? So, I think we're building it in on that side, that we're identifying something as our responsibility to our residents that is unsafe. We have to let the homeowner know, and it has to be remedied. That's my understanding. If you have an unsafe tree, if the branch hits your house or the trees, you take the tree down. That's, I think we're kind of going down a rabbit hole on this. I don't,
You're raising the question of the village saying this is unsafe, deal with it. I'm raising the point where someone uses this as a loophole, you debate whether it was unsafe or not, but they already took the tree down.
No, Dave, this is written both ways.
yeah, it is.
If you have a tree growing on your property, which constitutes a danger, you go to the building inspector and he says, yeah, I agree, let's get this thing down.
But I gotta come to get that approval.
Well, you talk to
The
Steve. You
building
don't
inspector.
have to come to
I
us.
understand,
Come to the
but I
board.
come to the village to get that approved. One comes down the ice storm, I wanna call the tree guy immediately, get things cleaned up, where a tree cut down is now imbalanced. But I gotta come to a process first to go through it, rather than be able to deal with my property.
Well, I think if there's a major tree storm, I think that we would understand. And it's not coming to the board, it would just be giving Steve a call saying, hey, I got this huge thing on my property. When I run over and take a look, I'm gonna take it down.
And usually the DPW is going through and they're seeing as a
I mean,
matter of
you're gonna
record.
come to
what's
us,
going on. I
that's
mean,
not anything
I think we're
formal.
substituting judgment for people that generally have decent judgment. That's why the village looks the way it does. Think about that. Tell me what the problem is.
Dave, I just told you, come down Locust Street, and I'll tell you
Yeah.
exactly the problem. That's the reason why I precipitated this. I've had many people, residents, call me and say, we're taking down trees right in front of our house. So
Who's
that,
taking them down? Owners?
The owners.
Do you need?
the owners,
Owners.
Are they rental properties?
well, yeah, but it wasn't by the rental property, it was a,
Are
yeah.
they rental properties?
Yeah, the church owned it, and it's a rental property, correct?
Some of the properties, I believe landlords are cutting trees now because of this threatening them.
Oh, no, this is what made me look into this. This happened about 6 months ago, before we even,
And you don't know why they took it down.
no, and I asked them, and they said,
I
oh,
don't get the
well,
law Just because I don't know why a tree came down.
what's that?
Hang on, let's
okay,
kind of
yeah.
stay on point with stuff, you know, you want to have a discussion, please have it after the meeting, feel free to reach out, of course. First Lily, and then you, okay, thanks.
Thank you. I just want to make certain that, Dave, if you finished? Okay, thank you. I'm addressing this in a much broader perspective. And while I agree with the main goal, which is the identifying of heritage trees in the village and protecting them, I think that is a worthwhile goal. Where I draw the line is private property. I feel very uncomfortable drafting any legislation that directs or controls what a person does on their property, particularly if you've lived there for 40 years and now suddenly you have a new layer of regulation that you need to be made aware of before you proceed with anything on your property. The second part is, let's say you are moving into our community and now you need to be told by someone, I don't know who the entity would be, what the rules and regulations are regarding your property and the vision that you might have had for removing trees on your property is not shared by the village. So there are ordinances that you need to be made aware of, just like HPB, but how draconian are we going to appear when we have all regulations regarding anything beyond a 6-inch caliber in your yard that now, you know, not everyone thinks the same, I guess is what I'm trying to say. One person's vision is not shared by another, and there have been places in the village that have done renovations and everything looks beautiful. Their vision was not to have a completely wooded lot, which existed previously. They would like a more open aspect to their property, which I don't know that is defensible. You know, I think that our attorney would have to speak to us about that, whether he feels that this action would be defensible if someone decided that they wanted to take several trees down in their yard and they came before the board and the board denied it. Is that defendable in court? Do you think we would actually win? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because we've done the research on it, and Jeff has too, yeah, go ahead.
No, it is.
Yeah, it's defensible, yeah.
Lily, I appreciate your comment, but again, I keep going back to HPB. We do this. We do this. I mean, I've had people move into the village, buy a home, they're like, oh, you mean I can't put up vinyl siding? No, you can't. Oh, well, I thought I was gonna be able to do that. Nobody told me I couldn't. So it's the same thing. You mean I can't put trucks on my deck, report deck? No, you can't. So we tell our owners on private property what they can and can't do with their house. So why would this be that much different if we're just talking about streetscapes and community trees and heritage trees?
That part, I'm absolutely in agreement, especially the streetscape and heritage trees in our village. I would like, if in drafting legislation identifying heritage trees, if someone has one in their yard, I would like to have them have some input into applying to have the tree in their yard as a heritage, designated as a heritage tree, rather than being told that now they better not touch that tree. I think that, I guess, talking about personal
Yeah, I know,
freedom.
I hear where you're going with
It's a
it.
philosophical
I can tell
viewpoint,
you,
I understand.
Brighton has had this legislation in place and unchallenged for, almost 10 years now, I think it is.
Wow.
Yeah, for quite a while. Hastings on Hudson was, in fact, I was on a Zoom meeting with the mayor today, in place for years. This has withstood challenge. In other words, and again, it goes back to, and I think that's a really good analogy, what we do with HPV. We want to protect our beautiful historic village. How do we do that? We have legislations, we have code, we have the guidelines. That's how we do it. Do we want to protect our entire canopy for our community and also for the planet, really? This, at least to me, and I agree with Lisa again, it's a starting point, we can fine tune it, but I think it's a starting point for us, There are a couple things, though. There was something we were directing Jeff to do on one of these things. There's a few things. Oh, yeah, we're just going to add a railroad on that one.
And, and this is a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
And we're still gonna have a public meeting, yes.
Just whenever,
Mayor, you want to?
whenever there's an
Yeah,
opportunity.
I can identify. Yeah.
I just wanted to applaud Justin's comments earlier. I spent my entire career writing regulations in the toy industry. And we didn't make them up ourselves. We just borrowed them. Lego had a really nice set of regulations that I would borrow for my company, Mattel. Hasbro had a set of regulations, or Europe had a set of regulations. And we all kind of borrowed from each other. And I think Justin talked about existing regulations that are working very, very well right now. I just returned from Charleston, South Carolina, talk about a beautiful canopy. I guarantee you, I even talked about it, I guarantee you they have requirements that protect that canopy. It's unbelievable. So I don't know what sort of research went into this, but I do see problems as I read it in terms of definitions and those that can be debated. And I think David's point about ending up in some form of either formal or informal litigation as to what you do. I just want to make a point that we take the time to look at what already exists. We could probably just borrow something that already exists that's working extremely well. And I think address a number of the issues we're talking about here. So I just want to make that very, very strong recommendation. And Justin, I appreciate the work that you did ahead of time.
Thank you for that, and plagiarism is always encouraged.
And I think we did start with an
I was
existing
about to
ordinance.
say, this has been borrowed,
Yes,
all of it,
yes.
from somewhere.
Okay, so they're dealing with 6-inch trees and
Mhm.
hiring of arborists to cut them down.
Yep.
You know what Brighton
I'm
standards?
shocked.
Pardon me?
I'm curious on Brighton, how strenuous their regulations are, but also how many applications have been made. Maybe people just ignoring it, the code thing that doesn't get applied.
Mhm.
So I think you have to measure the code and what are the implications of it.
Thank you. Yeah, Dave?
Yeah, I just had a couple things. So the enforcement penalties and offenses, if we continue to move down this road, the code enforcement officer shall administer and enforce the provisions of this chapter. My thought there might be to say the code enforcement officer shall administer and enforce the provisions of this chapter as directed and at the direction of the Board of Trustees. So if there's a condition that occurs, then they can bring it to our attention and we can say we choose not to enforce. Because sometimes there's going to be things that come up where you just simply want to have the right to not apply the enforcement penalties. So if we go down this road, to Dave's point, you want to be able to negotiate it lower, change it, whatever, or just say, you know what, first offense, we got to do some better education on this, or whatever it may be. So it would be nice if we could have that enforcement section be at our direction. The other comment is if you do choose to have him administer it, I think as part of the penalties, there should be a section that allows for the ability to waive or be defined by the Board of Trustees. So it gives us a little bit more capacity
A
rather
little
than.
flexibility.
So this is what the standard is, but if we want to,
I want to speak to enforcement
Yeah.
and fines. Having had those experiences with developers or people who want to put an addition on or whatever, and there's a tree, they're happy to pay $2,000.
Yes, they
It's
are.
nothing when they're putting on a $40,000 addition.
see number two though?
I know,
Number two's really
I know,
good.
I know, but
That's not number two.
you really, I know, you run into
Number
it, I know, but it's,
Number two's nice because it says every single day that helps.
I know, I see that. So
So
at
this
least
is-
it gives you a little more leverage.
Yeah, so this
Because
comes
you do
back
use
to-
the leverage, I
That's
know.
right. And then it comes back to, we could have something that is at the discretion of the Board of Trustees as, you know, I'd like to have that power come back to us.
I got to research to make sure the
Yeah.
power can come back to you.
Okay.
Okay, so that's another action item then for Jeff.
I don't know
Okay.
that you can
Okay, so that's an
take the
action.
power, or should take the power away from the code
Yeah.
enforcement officer.
Can you just opt to allow it to occur? So the power exists only if granted on a per instance basis? Or does it
Look
have-
at, you're gonna have to
It'd
look.
be very, very, very cumbersome, but
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get that in the episode, you know.
Yeah.
It's the only place in the code where you would be doing that. I mean, there are other places in the code where code enforcement officer has the obligation to enforce, and so this would be an exception to the code.
So that's an action item.
Maybe it's something that is there and then we figure out how we want to do it.
Mhm.
I also think 10 inches, 12 inches is probably better. We can even start bigger than that, but
Well, I think, why don't we do this? I would like to survey more codes and
Okay.
see, because this actually was sort of a standard caliper in a lot of codes. I mean, it wasn't like
Yeah.
picked out of thin air,
Mhm.
you know? So, but let's, you know, happy to do more research on that too.
I
Jeff.
agree.
Yeah, just to make sure.
the one thing I would say is, if we were to take the code as presented, maybe clarify a few things, it's something that if we came in and said 12 inches, 15 inches in diameter, that immediately protects a lot of, I know it's a big tree, but it immediately protects most of the heirloom trees that we think of, or heritage trees that we think of. And then we can continue to refine it and move it down from there if we want
Yeah,
to.
but canopy's new growth too.
I don't
You know, that's
disagree,
the
but,
thing, Lisa, you raised that point, you know, you gotta
Gotta
start
get it
somewhere
done.
with a
Gotta
tree.
get it to 12 inches.
and
Yeah,
And this goes to Justin and Lily, your comments on private property and taking trees down. On South Main Street, I think it's just past church, right? No,
Towards
no,
Jefferson?
no, it's down towards Jefferson, across from your place, a little farther south.
Yeah, on my side of the street?
No, opposite side.
okay.
There's that one tree that's at least, this, I mean, it's massive.
Your Stonegate?
No,
Yeah, Stonegate.
it's closer to us from Stonegate. It's like right across from the white,
Where, your house? Across from,
St. Louis, the St. Louis church. To the left is the white
Oh,
building.
it's actually, it's near the two-family
Yeah.
house, the pale green house across from you. Massive tree.
tree.
oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's spectacular.
Yeah.
But it's on private property.
And it contributes to our streetscape.
Yeah,
Huge
so
one.
this, I think, comes to, this sort of code, you can always start with it being at a bigger diameter and then bring it down easier. Then you can start at a real little diameter and piss a bunch of people off possibly and move it up in diameter. It's just
But
this,
I think you raised a point, like, we'll research caliper size, really see how, you know, because this was not,
Yeah.
this wasn't just somebody throwing a dart
Yeah.
there, you know? Okay, we're going to start to wrap this up because we
Yeah,
have,
just one other.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm Robert Cody, I'm in Washington now. Just because you're going to do another review,
Oh,
one
yeah.
other issue you might want to look at. Both of my neighbors, the previous owner of Jim Walton's house who spoke tonight, and on the other side, there's two large maple trees that sit in both of their lawns. Both homeowners have had an arborist come and thin out the tree so they could grow something on one side, and on the other side, they have a patio now where the shade from the tree was so dense, nothing would grow under it. And so they just thinned out the canopy. I don't think that's really addressed in the ordinance, but that's something you might want to consider how you deal with that situation.
I think that was tree
Yeah,
maintenance,
it
that's
was.
just your
That was that
maintaining.
one
tree.
little comment that we had talked about,
Yeah.
that covers like being able to prune and
Yeah,
thin out
you can
trees
maintain
so
your
that they can, you know, continue to grow and be healthy. Right, is that you're talking about that?
Well, in this case, it wasn't just to be healthy, it was to let more light on.
Oh, for the patio.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you might want to just define that.
There may be something that we could add with the total canopy cover, right? You have a minimum by right, but you wouldn't necessarily want them to take an entire tree down to get to it, right? So
I don't know, I think that's
I think
parsing.
it's covered.
you think it's covered in some of that flexibility?
No, they have it.
Oh, they have it, yeah,
You
you're
have it, there's a definition of substantial alteration, which has a typo in it, it should be alleviating rather than elevating.
Very different.
But I think that sort of covers the concerns,
What number are you in?
definitions.
Yeah, I see where you are.
Mayor, can I just ask a question?
Yeah, and then we're
Dave,
gonna start
do
to
you feel like
wrap
you've been
this up.
heard? Tonight?
Yeah, I
Okay.
appreciate this discussion, I think
Okay.
it's very healthy.
Okay,
I think the focus should be on heritage and those more along public
Okay.
ways.
Thanks so much for your input.
and Lily and
Yeah.
Justin, do you feel that you've been heard?
Okay.
You
have anything?
feel that you've been heard, because you guys are kind of quiet over there, I want to make sure you feel that you've been heard.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I don't feel like I need to
Okay.
expand my comments.
Okay, thank you.
No, I think this has been a good discussion. It's
Yeah,
been great
it's been great
input from
discussion.
everybody,
Okay,
you know, and we have a little bit more research and a few
Yeah,
action items here.
I'm going to send to everybody Brighton's code. I
Okay.
have a link.
I'm going to look at Charleston's,
I know, I was thinking the same
not very
thing. Yeah.
quick. I love it.
Could someone just call Brighton and see how many applications? they
Yeah,
get?
we're going to look into Brighton's.
Yeah, we'll call.
Thanks, Dave.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, next up. Where are we? Here. Okay.
COVID.
Let's see, we did this, we did that.
COVID.
Review of the COVID policy,
All right.
item
We'll
6.
see how fast I can do this.
I'm getting out of the cold.
Thanks a lot, Jake. Okay.
I make a motion to void our COVID policy.
Hang on, whoops.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Not necessarily avoid the policy,
Yeah, okay.
because adopted as a pandemic policy, not
Sure.
specific to this. That way, we always can pull it out if we have another pandemic situation.
How about we make a motion to, or we write a law that amends it, or something that if there's a state of emergency, it pops back into existence.
Yeah, but at least.
So wait, there's two pieces.
It's not even,
Dave,
but even for that, it's
hold
not
on a
great.
second.
I don't even like it for
Hold on a
that.
second, wait, we have a vaccine policy, which is separate than the exposure policy, is that correct? Because I see the vaccine policy, and that I definitely think is no longer relevant, because no one has a mandated vaccine policy any longer. It is not mandated, it is recommended that you get the vaccine.
Yeah, just like it's another flu shot.
Right, the current one was
What
mandated.
I'm saying is, this was written back.
Put it on the shelf.
Right, and we understand. But the-
Yeah,
but the-
I'm
Yeah,
saying-
but here, please hear Dorothea out, because I think this is a very important
Also
distinction
goes to.
for work that's already been done relative to a pandemic.
Mhm.
So let's just hear her out.
What I'm saying is, table it back to a pandemic policy, because we're required by the state to have a pandemic plan, and it was all part of the pandemic plan at that time. The board decided to move forward with this. So I'm saying, yes, right now, this is no longer a pandemic. We can take it, change the name of it, rewrite the policy to be more pandemic related. And that way it's in our
We have the template.
Yes,
If we ever
we
have a
have it.
pandemic
We need
again,
it.
she's just saying, don't throw the baby out with the
Oh, yeah,
bathwater. The work's done.
Right, file it under pandemic,
Right.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, we're
That's
saying
what I'm
we
saying,
don't have
because
a
we
pandemic.
have to maintain that pandemic
Right.
policy. That was instituted.
And I'm in
then.
agreement with that. That makes
Yeah.
sense. That's prudent.
Sure, but I mean, we can also take the current vaccination policy, the vaccination testing policy that we have, and, per CDC updated this 23-24, Novavax COVID-19 vaccine is recommended for people over the age of, just as a recommendation, because that's what CDC says. So if you want to kind of replace some of the language with more free CDC language, it's very simple. It's just, it gives you the initial vaccine.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement.
I think
Just
we're-
change the
all
language
saying
to be
good.
overall
That sounds good to me.
pandemic.
Okay,
And
Just so
yeah, just file
if anything ever happens again, we have something we can pull out and see if we can.
And we're ready to go per state, if the state issues
Right,
orders.
That's all I'm saying.
it. It will, but I don't think we'll be around.
I hope not. I hope
I know.
it never happens again.
I know. I think that's just prudent. And
Yeah,
we're
that's all.
good, yeah.
I
Justin.
think, I hear what you're saying, Dorothea, and I think that what Dave was suggesting still stands, though, because I think that there's a lot of wording that's specific to the pandemic that we had. So I'd like to repeal this particular policy and keep the other one on standby, and consider as a board policy that when there is a pandemic,
Right.
we convene and look at policies, including the old one that we had,
Mhm.
to figure out what to put in place.
Sure.
So the motion would be
That's fine.
to rescind the policy that's been in effect, yet save it for a future pandemic. Just for the record, by the way, I just had my COVID vaccine.
How are you?
Pretty good,
Okay.
actually. Yeah, bump in the arm, sore,
Good,
a
yeah.
little sleepy, but good.
I think it's always good to reflect back on prior policy and think about what worked and what
Yeah,
didn't work.
it's-
But every pandemic's going to be a little different, the
Yeah.
transmission, how, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
But I think Dorothea raises an excellent point, that we've already done the work, set it aside, because if there is ever anything again, that there's going to be federal mandates, state mandates, CDC,
Okay.
Mhm.
that's all that is, that's all
There
we're
was time
saying.
and energy went into
Yeah.
that policy. That's all.
Yep. Save it.
Cheers.
Good,
Okay, we're saving it.
all right.
Okay, where's the motion?
Motion to repeal the existing
Repeal and save the
COVID-19
file.
and save the file.
Repeal.
I'll second.
Don't delete the public records.
Repeal and save the
Okay, we
file.
have, do we have a motion?
We do.
Is it good, we're good?
Okay, good enough.
Okay, and a second, yes, okay, roll call.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
All right.
Next up, DPW bathroom update.
Yes.
Yeah,
There was a little confusion. You requested pictures. Were you looking for the existing bathroom? Because we have a heck of a picture of that, which I couldn't
No,
put
we
my
want-
hands on.
Well,
I know there's some plans.
I've seen
think
some in the
they're
past.
being in, they're in.
why don't we send them out to the board, because there's a problem with the printer.
Yeah.
Like, the printer is jammed,
Yeah.
because we were going to give you the plans, but we'll send them, let's just send them out to the board.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you guys can take a look at what's going on. And also, Zach made a good point. I don't know if when you visited there, you saw his offices in a little room with like no ventilation, all the trucks are going in and out of the base. So he said, geez, is there any way to kind of factor in an office? Personally, and we had Fran Obermeyer come out, who, at the recommendation, he knows the facility. He's an architect, and he took a look, he was the one who did the bathroom designs, okay, just so when you get them, you'll see that it's his work. He made a great recommendation, and if you remember, there's like a loft area, it's called a mezzanine, that overlooks the bays. That could be repurposed for office space, and then what's stored up there for his office could be same floor storage. And so the DPW thinks that they could really do the bulk of that work, so it would be very inexpensive to convert it. Essentially, you're doing an in-house remodel and, close that off with proper firewall. I think it's something that we should take a look at, but let's send out the bathroom design, because that's something that's really on deck. There's ARPA funds that are already set aside. But I want the board to be thinking about that. And if you'd like to have Fran take a closer look at how that could happen, we certainly can, we can just give him a call and say, can you sketch up something that looks realistic for us to build maybe the DPW could do some of it even over the winter. Steve did go down to make sure that it would meet proper egress, fire code, all of that, and it does. And what it does is it doesn't change the footprint of the building, so there's other things that don't need to kick in because it's an internal remodel. So I'm just throwing that out. It was just a discussion that they had. Yeah.
I appreciate the discussion and thought on this. I guess personally, I would rather see, given the ambiguity about keeping the existing building and given the lack of the multi-year capital plan, I would rather put the effort in those directions, have the DPW get a good feel for the roads, figure out how much money we need to save and spend on those projects, and potentially figure out a different use for the building as a whole before we spend the effort going down the path and doing this project.
The bathrooms have already been approved. The funding has already been approved by the previous board. And I just want to remind this board again, and I urge you, of course, to always visit DPW. They're always happy to see everybody. There is one single toilet in a closet located in a kitchen area with no separate sink to wash up. They have to wash up in the kitchen sink. They work with raw sewage. There's no place to shower. There are not separate facilities for men and women, and we have men and women in the DPW. I think there's a number of ways we can go. Right now, this is the facility we have. We have a crew that's running our village and taking care of our infrastructure, and I think this is long overdue. And I also, and this was part of a speech that I gave recently, we could have an opportunity potentially to repurpose that site and maybe reuse those bathrooms as public bathrooms. So, that's in the future, but I think we have to look at, this is really where we are now. This is what the previous board has also approved. Yes, Lily.
Might one option be using the ARPA funds to build, not necessarily build, but I know that there are trailers that come fully outfitted as bathrooms and showers, two, men on one side and women on the other. To bring one of those on site, so that they would have something nice to use without.
It's a very interesting proposal.
There's a meeting with the DPW crew. When is that, Thursday? Why don't we bring all these recommendations back from the board to the DPW too? Because they know what their needs are. And we can speak with the superintendent as well, about a trailer and how that could potentially work.
I don't want to get a visual in their head that it's really been,
Well,
they're really, I've been to weddings.
You're all,
Very nice.
I understand. And so, it's kind of a one-shot event-oriented thing at a wedding, as opposed to the dailiness of the crew coming and going.
Yes.
And the type of work that they do. The type of work that they do is different from being a guest at a wedding.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
these had
So-
showers since.
I know all about
Right.
them. I absolutely, yep, I
Can I
sure
just
do.
take a comment,
Yep.
Megan? Because when I went and did visit,
Yeah.
and certainly they need to have something,
Mhm.
something needs to be done. And we were talking and walking the site.
Mhm.
There is my old garage that's sitting there that is now used for storage, that
Mhm.
standalone building.
Mhm.
And we had talked about maybe, getting them out of the working station and having a actual building that is like a changing area and
Mhm.
bathrooms that are separate from all the smells and
Mhm.
smokes and all that stuff, so that they do have. So, that's another option maybe, is to actually take the bathrooms right out of that building and put it in that other standalone.
And I know where you're talking, and all of the utilities run right underneath that driveway. They've looked at so many options, and with Scott
That
Horner.
seems to think,
Well, as of last week, that was never an option, because the building is actually not on a stable foundation. So it would have to be dug up, in other words, it just wouldn't even work.
Just another option.
No, I'm thinking, hey, what about that even for an office? What about for this? What about,
Right.
and Fran Obermeyer had the same thoughts as well. So, I'm kind of going with the people that are identifying the needs and really what's there. There's also the 2 fuel tanks that are right there as well. So, it becomes, some of the things are a little bit problematic.
Well, I haven't seen the plan, so I don't really even know.
Yeah,
what
no,
we're
that's why we're
talking
going to send them out. We'll send them out to you. Yes, Bob.
I just had a question, because I did listen to the State of the Village speech, and you mentioned in that speech that the possibility of moving the DPW? Where were you thinking that you would move the DPW?
I don't want to say right now because there's some possibilities out there, and I just think it's not really, it's not something to be discussed publicly. Yeah, that's all.
I think we need to discuss this somehow, privately or.
Well, privately,
If we're
potentially.
talking about doing this
Yeah.
bathroom, that's.
Privately,
part of the puzzle,
potentially,
so.
yeah.
Because you made it public, you've already discussed it publicly.
I'm talking about a possibility, that's all, a possibility, talking about the future. Why, you know, I mean, I think we can all agree, and if you did hear the speech, then you know where the DPW's been situated is in a beautiful spot on the canal, adjacent to an arboretum, adjacent to the preserve, it's on the canal path, there's the Auburn line, you know, Auburn Trail. I think we have to at least be open to other possibilities. So I'm not prepared to discuss that tonight. Yeah,
Just comment on all of this. I do think that that land is perfect for public use different than a DPW. There's challenges to that we have to explore. Beyond this year, I think part of the long-term capital plan should include RFP money for a DPW long-term plan. And at some point, that should happen, where we hire people to come in and explore all these different options and to support alternatives and how we proceed or not to proceed or reuse the space. And if we reuse the space, how do we better create opportunities for engagement with the Arboretum? And maybe there isn't anything that we can do, maybe there is. But if there's opportunities to reclaim that land, to me anyway, that's an easy pitch to the county, to the state, to basically revitalize land along the canal that's not just for residential village use, but a broader community-wide use. To that end, though, this goes.
listen to my speech.
This goes to the bathroom, right?
We need something now.
Well, we may need something now. I don't know if what we build is going to fit into whatever the RFP or whatever our big master plan might come back with. So to me, I look at these bathrooms and want to be very efficient in design and scale with the understanding that it might be lost money.
Like it might be temporary.
It might be temporary. Speaks to Lily's point, or they're done in a way that the long-term plan is maybe they become public use.
That actually was the initial design was based around that. I do think that when we do bring this back to the board, we need to have Scott Harder here, because Scott really was very fundamental with how this could really be adapted. Yeah.
The challenge to that last point, though, is placement, design, and larger concepts. If somebody comes in and looks at that spot and you've just put in a permanent bathroom, right, that potentially might become public use, did you put it in the right spot? Is it part of the master plan? Like, we don't even know. So again, this kind of goes back to, is there a stopgap measure that may not be permanent, that may be like a rental unit until we get to the point of having an RFP done?
Let's look at it all.
Right?
Let's look at it all, but we have to understand that this money has already been designated by the previous board to do this.
Yes. And I would say
To put bathroom, to have some bathrooms.
it's a portion of the money needed. Understand that
Yeah.
you're going to need to take from sewer, and sewer on this has a larger responsibility because of the shower needs, because of dealing with
And the changing
But what I'm
rooms.
saying is that money's been designated to
Yes.
upgrade bathrooms or to do a
Mhm.
better
Yes.
bathroom. Doesn't mean it has to be where we're talking.
And it doesn't mean it needs to be a permanent. I want to mention that our board, we're talking about $100,000 or so on these bathrooms, and perhaps only a small portion of that, which I feel is not even properly allocated using ARPA funds personally, would have come from those federal funds. I don't think this board is bound to make any decision to spend that money, let alone way more than that money, because of a decision that the prior board made. It's up to us.
To that end, any ARPA, maybe this is a question for you, Jeff, any determination by a prior board with regards to ARPA funding has no permanency, we can come in and change that, right? Or,
Don't know.
We'd have to look into that, because there's different regulations with ARPA funding and how We'd have to look into that, I think.
I'm not trying to take away bathroom, they need one. That little,
They totally need one.
Something needs to
It's not even
Something needs
debatable.
to happen, right,
It's not
I
even
agree.
debatable.
And I think we all agree that something needs to happen.
something different is.
Okay, so let's, tick-tock, let's come up with an action item here then.
Okay.
Looking at a temporary trailer and the cost of that, what that would look like, bringing it back, because there is a meeting with DPW this week, letting them know that this is a possibility. Any other options you want to have for them to Dorothea, because there is the meeting with the entire DPW that is on a health plan.
I would like to just, can we use
Yeah.
better terminology? I mean, I don't want them to, well, they're going to, the trustee says you can just have a trailer. I mean, a standalone
Structure.
structure
Okay,
that's,
whatever,
because
you
I
guys
just
come
don't
up
want
with
them
good
to,
language, okay.
I just don't want them to think
whatever.
that we don't think they're worthy of.
Yeah,
Or even an efficiency, like a freestanding efficiency bathroom that's permanent, but understanding that when we're putting the money in, it's like, we might just take it down.
okay, I think we've covered it. I think
Good enough.
we've all covered it.
All right,
They
Okay,
need that.
so we can move on. Review of the proposed code updates. And yeah, this was something that I guess Steve, Steve had reached out to you, Jeff, about this?
Not really.
Not really? Okay, Steve's not here,
It
but,
came up, but I do think it
Okay.
came up in the context of the review of building permits for 75 Monroe. So that's why I was particularly involved. It looks like there's a typo in our current code that has to be changed. It looks like Steve wants to put something in either the site plan code or the building permit code about what final plans consist of. I think
Yeah.
this is from,
Chyla, I think.
Town of
I think
Chyla.
it's the town of Chyla.
Yeah.
And I also think Henriette,
This is village code.
No, the second part says town of Shiloh.
Yeah.
Part of village code is with a typo, then there's a section after that, chapter 500 zoning, which is.
Is what he wants to
that
put
was,
in.
yeah, if you look on the top right, this is, he pulled this from the town of Chyla. He did a survey of codes within our county. And he felt that this would, do you see where we are? Oh, okay. No, so I think, my understanding, just based on a limited conversation I had with him, he felt that this really gave tremendous clarity to any applicant submitting plans. Because there's specific components to the plans called out, specifically the word Mylar with copies required, So there is no, for lack of a better word, wiggle room, that this, if we are going to get a plan of this nature from an applicant with this scale and this size, this is what we need to be able to move forward. And I tend to agree, I think it gives greater clarity. And he looked at a lot of codes, and this was the one he wanted to recommend to the board.
But Jeff and either of these, they need to age?
they need to be put, this one's easy.
Yep.
Yeah, the typo.
This has got to be, I got to look at where it goes.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so why don't we direct Jeff to just, let's take a look.
Yep.
We can bring it, do what you do.
Okay.
And then bring it back to the board. Okay, so that's our action. Yeah,
Well,
Justin.
With the typo, is there any, we can just move that ahead, it just clearly references the wrong section.
Yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward, isn't it, Jeff, the typo?
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know why we need to do it in just one local law and combine it with this edition. I mean, do whatever you want.
I don't care, if there's,
You want, I mean, so you still need a local law
Yeah, we have to change it.
that changes this.
yeah, we can't just take
You
Steve's.
can't just do this.
We can't use whiteout.
But I'm okay with white.
In this instance, I think that first, the typo, everybody's probably going to vote in favor.
Yeah.
Not to presume anything, so if you tag it onto this other one, that'll be fine. Right, just put it in one.
That's fine.
While we're in there, get the gallbladder too.
Okay, put it in one, yeah, figure out if it should be zoning or building permits.
Okay, so that's the action item then. If Jeff can just take a look at it, where would this go? Any tweaking that maybe, it would be needed can come right back to the board then. Okay, thanks for that, and thanks to Steve for doing that research. Let's see, where are we here? Discussion on RFP for long-term capital planning.
Thanks for putting it in. I think we did that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Member items. Anybody? We'll start this time. Justin,
I don't have
anything? Okay, Lily?
No?
You're good? Okay. Lisa? No? Okay. Dave?
Some. Oh, yeah, this question, I think, is critical, and we talked about it briefly, I forget, when, maybe it was a tail end, I brought it up, and we were told to talk about it publicly. So we have the biggest project coming to the village that we've had in a very long time, and I think Steve is clearly doing very good work with the code. But Steve has a full-time job away from 75 Monroe, both as code enforcement officer and for building permits and everything else, and building inspector. I think Steve should continue that work. And I think it would make sense for us, given the very long history of the developer with the village, that we have somebody come in and specific to that project and that project alone, be our employee to ensure that it is built correctly, according to plans, the code enforcement, building, everything Steve is doing. My concern that if Steve does for 75 Monroe, he's not going to have the time to do for the rest of the village. And he's had a full-time job already. So what I'm proposing is to see if there may be a consulting firm that works on very large, sizable, significant projects. Maybe we've already identified one that will handle every single concrete pour that needs to be inspected, every single plumbing that needs to be inspected. And again, I've never done this, I'm not in the building trades. It's just the simple awareness from a management perspective. Steve's time really, it was a full-time job before 75 Monroe came along. So I suspect we're bringing in enough consulting and or permitting fees that we can direct that to somebody specific to that project and potentially even put it onto the developer. I don't know, but if we could discuss.
Yes, Lily. My understanding is that at some point, that was discussed and decided that it would not be Steve who would be going in for the final inspections to make certain that they complied with the site plan and also the building plans. And the same, I think it was Barrow this has been contracted to do the HBB to make for the certificate of compliance for that also. The question is, who pays for that? That was a question that I don't think was.
And we also have Scott Harder as a resource.
Yes, he was the engineer, and we voted on that.
Yeah.
And so he will be doing that. It's not Steve.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah, Dorothea.
I'm done. Actually, through Jennifer Aarons, through the contractor they have with Laura Cooney, she has someone who is ready to go for the full inspection part of the building. So when the project is being built, they go in and do those inspections, and it comes off the Steve's plate, because I think this was long ago.
This was long ago.
I think
Yeah.
that this was a burden on the village that could not be cost-effective for us to do. We cannot donate, have a set staff
Manpower,
person.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just not possible. And my anticipation of that, and it was back then, and if I'm speaking wrong, someone correct me, that the cost would be incurred by 75 Monroe. And that is how, back then, it was anticipated it would be covered.
Moving forward.
So has that been revisited with the applicant?
I think the applicant has been informed, and I think
And
that
they would
we've
get-
already talked to the party that would be doing the inspections, and doing all that whole building part thing. I don't think you can, I think Steve will have some responsibility, and I could be.
He issues doesn't he issue all the finals?
And I
You know,
don't think
it's
you
his
can take that
responsibility.
part away from Steve, because legally it
Legally.
has to be the village building.
But he doesn't do it until he gets those sign-offs and
From
goes through the
appropriate
process.
He's hiring all the different consultants to then come back to him.
Well, we're hiring.
We are.
Yeah,
And then
no, we already
develop-
put this in
develop
play.
a case,
We
yeah.
put this in play,
Yeah.
So then those consultants work for us, we hire them, and
yes,
then we're expected to get reimbursed by the
correct.
applicant.
Right.
So the applicant does not have any
No,
involvement?
that, and the
With that
point is that
discussion.
the applicant doesn't
Yes.
have that involvement,
Okay,
because.
they're not
They need
working
to
for the
work for
applicant.
us.
Yeah, they're working for us,
Right.
not the applicant.
Right.
Right.
Can I
Yes,
just say
please
that
do.
you should check with your council to make sure there's an arrangement for this
You read my
escrow
mind.
funds and all the stuff that will cover.
Yep.
Yep.
So you do not get too far ahead of the applicant.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And that's also in progress.
So the.
And any sort of more detailed discussion would have to be in session really with that attorney.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just know that part of it has been looked at, and
Yeah.
a plan is in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So
Yeah.
staying on the same topic.
Okay.
All the wheels for this were put in place prior to my participation here on the board, and at least the same with you. A number of these participants, before project, gets the final building permit, it may be beneficial for us to have them all
Come to a meeting?
and come to a meeting in advance of the final building permit being issued, to ensure that we are all comfortable with those consultants, who's doing the work and how it's all being applied, as to whether or not we need somebody in addition. Now, if you're telling me that's Steve's job to do and not ours, okay.
No, I'm telling you, finals, I think what I'm trying to say is any final permits, anything that goes through has to be
Just the signature.
just the
Yeah,
signature.
he literally signs
He can take the consultant's recommendations and go through it. And then if he feels something he wants to look at further, yeah, obviously he can go to the site, but
But we're hiring we're selecting these consultants, is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay, so what's challenging for me, from a fiduciary perspective, is recently being elected, is we hired these people on the prior board that I've never even met and
We
not
don't
even
even
know.
know.
I'm confident, hopefully, that they can all do the job, for sure, but there is a point of me that would like to hear it from them before.
Well, that could be set up.
yeah,
Yeah.
we can arrange for that.
I just want to have, and have it be
We're
a
so
public
used to working
meeting.
with them, yeah. I
Have
know
it
what
be a
you're
public
saying, you do.
meeting where
Yeah.
residents can come in and ask
Mhm.
questions, people who have experience in
Mhm.
building trades, if they're residents, and all these things. I just
Should
want to
should that
have,
be a special meeting?
and I don't care
What do you
when,
think?
Um,
Or take it at our board meeting?
I think we need to, I think having them come in and meet you is fine, but I'm
Yeah.
opening it up to the public, and I'm nothing against the public, that's not what I'm saying. I think you need to talk to Dan Spitzer,
Yeah,
the
I think
council.
there's some things that need to be covered with the attorney on the project.
Okay.
Um,
but you know where
I think
I'm
that's-
going.
Sure. I think I hear where you're going, and I'm in agreement.
Yeah.
I think it's important that you know who's
Right.
overseeing, from that standpoint, the largest project to come through since the
Yeah.
Erie Canal. You know,
Right,
yeah, but I think like the whole idea of the whole public, that, I think that might be something different, and I think that our attorney would want to speak to that. Okay?
well, if you could arrange for that, or at least ask the questions, how could we arrange for that?
Yeah, why don't we you'll reach out to Dan, and we'll
Yeah,
sort of facilitate,
that's fine.
see where we can make that happen.
Next question, the bike path. Lisa, you had an opportunity to meet with Peter.
Yes, Peter.
That's my member item.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You did this last time, too. Go ahead.
So,
You're reading mine.
If one other member of the board or anybody in the public who actually listened until this hour, at 7:30 in the morning on Thursday, I'm going to walk the path that
Peter?
Peter has
Okay.
presented, which is kind of cutting, across, it looks like from Chain Place down to the canal path, and then trying to redirect bicycles under. But anyway, we're going to talk for about a half an hour, and it's all with the idea of trying to figure out how to keep the bikes off of crossing over Main Street there,
Mhm.
North Main, right over the bridge, because that is a dangerous intersection.
Do you know that the Canal Corps puts signs up right where that fork is,
Mhm.
where it says pedestrians one way and bikes the other,
Yes,
which encourages bikes to cross over that line, to
Yeah.
cross over the street?
yep, we are in there.
Why?
That's my member, are you want to keep
Okay.
going?
Yeah,
You want me to
okay.
do a member item?
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
I'm all
I guess you're
locked and loaded on this
good.
one.
All right.
Having met with Peter Budd on several occasions and had many conversations with Peter, I'm glad you're meeting with him. He has a lot of really great ideas. He's a really avid cyclist. And we're all very excited to get his input. However, there's a lot of moving parts with this as we are starting, you guys are learning this with the Canal Path and with Canal Corporation. So recently, the Canal Corp folks who oversee the entire Canal Path came through the village. And so Zach and I had an opportunity to meet up with them and talk about that sort of, the crossovers with the bicyclists and the pedestrians. And we're really trying to negotiate with them because what the Canal Corp sometimes envisions for the path is in conflict with the way bicyclists use the path and pedestrians. And they have sometimes a different vision. So one of our thoughts was, after, Zach and I were talking about it afterward, is that maybe we bring this back, we ask them to zoom in or something, the folks that oversee the path, and we really lay this out for them, because I think that they just see that these bicyclists have to cross over the bridge when they always go underneath, because they don't want to stop. They're bicycling, they're literally on a roll. And what I've seen, and maybe you guys have noticed this with the crossing beacons, that pedestrians will use the crossing beacons if they're hiking or going down the path. Bicyclists don't even press the button. They don't want to stop. They just kind of go, okay, and they go for it. That's far more dangerous. I would rather have that option or the direction where they go underneath the bridge. It is a safe way for the bicyclists. Pedestrians are noticed with this. We at least can start talking about that. The Canal Corp was not interested in that. It's kind of like NISTOT sometimes. But they may be receptive if we really bring this back and really show them why. They were very interested, by the way, in advocating for another crossing beacon or additional, some type of signage at the end of the State Street Bridge, which is so dangerous. And we took them down there. No sooner had we gotten to that crossing to Northfield there, 3 mothers with strollers trying to cross. I mean, it was like cue the moms with strollers, coming, and it was so dangerous, and they were running with their kids across, and we said, we need to have something, we need advocacy from the Canal Corp with NISTOT. They said, we'll be happy to do it. So now we have an opportunity there. So I'm just throwing this out, there's no action to be taken other than, hey, you had mentioned that it'd be great to have this on the agenda at some point. We are going into winter, there's less biking, but I think this is an opportunity for us to really sort through it.
Yeah, I don't have any answers, I just.
Yeah.
I'll be.
Well, when you walk, you'll
see.
get
I
a
know what
good
the
feel.
problem is, I just don't have any answers.
Yeah, you'll get a good feel.
And the other thing about redirecting the path sort of up through the parking lot, that is slightly problematic because we don't own any of the property.
And the woman who does is not very excited about it.
Well, and the Canal Corp owns a whole other section of property that they think they own, and when you go to Shane Place, property ownership, Jeff, you and I talk about this all the time. Who owns what and how, and somebody has a quarter of this, and, it just is kind of crazy.
Because Peter's also trying to get the survey for that space, and Steve is having a really hard time really trying to get the actual survey to see where the lines are.
Yeah, we have Canal Corp property line maps, and I think Peter probably has those too. I don't know about actual surveys.
Yeah, we couldn't find the survey to where her property line ends and where.
So it's just, but anyway, that's just my member item, and it sort of dovetails with where you're going, because I kind of think we have opportunity. By the end of that little mini visit, they were, I think, a little more receptive.
Well, let's just talking.
And I think if they hear from the board, other trustees, there's Peter has a whole advocacy group with other
Yeah.
cyclists, you know.
And I'm glad you're meeting with Peter, because I
Yeah, it's
asked
good-
him, I
good
said,
to
you know,
do.
this is great stuff, he's done a lot of
Yeah.
work. I said, why don't you come in and meet the whole board? He
Yep.
just said, I don't, that's not my thing. He's like, I feel really embarrassed to go talk to everybody, because I like one-on-one.
Yeah, that's
So
his
that's
thing,
his-
that's his thing, for sure.
I got
Okay.
2 other things.
Oh, I thought you were done.
No. I passed it over because.
Oh, okay,
I wanted to
it was-
stand, but,
Okay.
we have an Arboretum tour, I believe.
Mhm.
That is with the Friends of the Arboretum,
Mhm.
not Prism, at 4 o'clock
Yeah,
on
Prism.
Thursday, right?
Thursdays with just the Friends of the
Yeah,
Arboretum.
right.
I sent a date to Prism to
Okay.
meet with the Arboretum, Friends of the Arboretum.
Yep.
Mhm.
I'm waiting for specifics from them.
4 o'clock on Thursday.
Yes.
We'll see
Yeah,
everybody
it's
then.
publicly noticed.
Yep,
Yeah,
great.
where do we go? Where do
We're
we
meeting
meet?
at the DPW.
That's
Are you
my
Thank you.
gonna
feedback.
Okay.
be there?
We can all take a look at the bathroom.
You're out of town.
Okay, good.
Okay, one other, second, last number item. Any information on Ford Field?
Oh, Fort Field.
It was, we wanted to inquire as to who owns the land at Ford Field.
Oh, yeah.
Protect it.
Canal.
Owns it, and Niagara Mohawk owns a little piece of it.
Now known as Avangrid.
So Niagara
Canal
Mohawk,
Corp owns it?
Niagara
Oh, yeah.
Mohawk.
Mostly
And
Canal Corp.
So why is it that they,
can somebody, Justin, you easily have the ability to pull a property map so we can see those slivers, would you? You're really good at that.
and the reason I asked that is because I thought it was owned by like the Little League.
No, they have,
They probably lease it.
they're leasing,
Oh, they're
yeah.
renting, got it, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so let's start with that.
I thought Pittsburgh Little League owned a little pie-shaped piece.
No,
No.
not according to.
Not according to
the town.
what the maps
the
were.
assessor.
Assessor.
Yeah, the assessor.
Okay.
Yeah, because we thought so too, actually, but it's not, nope.
So Niagara Mohawk and Canal Corp. Will Canal Corp share with us any leases with regards to property that is in the village?
Should be a matter of.
It's a public document,
Public.
public agents, they have to.
Could we obtain that document?
Do a FOIL request.
Yeah.
I would rather do it collegially, see if we
Yeah.
can get a copy.
Can we
Just ask.
Can we ask Jeff to do that?
Yeah, if you can follow up,
Can
or
you do
Scott.
I can do it, but I don't have the contacts that like Scott has.
Scott has really good contacts. I would go right through Scott.
Could-
Oh, yeah,
Could we ask Scott?
I can direct Scott.
To do
Yep.
that? So.
Yeah, do you have
I'd
a note of
like to
that? I
see
can
a
call.
copy of
And
the
then,
lease.
and then we can FOIL it if that.
Yeah,
So the
they're
little-
usually pretty forthcoming on this stuff. They know it's public.
And maybe it's as simple as the individual that Justin and I spoke with. We just simply call them up and say, hey, could you pass along the lease for
Yeah.
the Little League?
Yeah, I mean, I
Right?
don't think there'd be any problem.
And obviously, it's probably going to look a lot like our lease, which is any given day, they could take the land.
No, I do not know.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a lease.
Oh, all right, well, let's take a look, we'll go from there.
Okay.
Because I
Good thing
really
to know.
love Ford Field, and
I agree, I love them.
let's see what that lease looks like.
It's an institution, okay.
And then one more thing, it's not a member item, but I just want to let everybody know, I'm not going to be at the meeting in November.
You're in
Going to
Rome.
Italy for my
Oh,
birthday,
yes.
yeah,
We want a full report.
so. I-
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is there-
Oh, wait, wait, a minute.
Oh, no, we have minutes.
You have
Oh, we have an
minutes, and I need-
executive
And I
session.
need an executive session.
Oh, let's do minutes real quick, and then, I forgot about the executive session. Thank you for reminding me,
Is it going to be a long executive session?
potentially. Sorry.
Would you say long?
Okay, good night, everyone.
Yeah, Bob.
I do have something on October 3rd, are we on October 3rd, right?
I did send to the board in the last update yesterday, July 28th, I made adjustments
You did
as
the adjustments.
requested. I reviewed both July 28th and August 28th and made some changes.
Okay. Are we on July 28th then?
Yeah.
Okay. DVH, Delta Victor Hotel should be DBH, Delta Bravo Hotel, in the motion regarding the Arboretum.
Okay.
Other than that typo, I'm okay.
Okay. Any other?
Just me not understanding trees.
No no big deal.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve with amendments.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dave, you can't make that motion.
I wasn't there.
You're there.
Okay, so anybody else want to make the motion?
I will make a motion to approve the July 28th meeting minutes
I'll second, with the amendments.
with amendments.
Second.
Okay, trustee Coe,
Yes.
trustee Lightgev,
Aye.
trustee Lanfair stepped away, so I can't get a vote.
Absent?
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
And trustee Marshall's going to abstain. The motion passes,
Okay, I think so. Okay, next up.
August 28th, I made an amendment on that. I reviewed the tape and I made a change.
Okay,
I was absent.
You were absent, you
Okay.
can't vote. Lisa, you can't vote. We have to wait for Lily to return to the room.
Can we go to October
is she on the
3rd?
way?
She's in the ladies' room.
I thought she was coming back.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's
October
just move
3rd?
on, let's just move on, we'll come right back. How's that?
October 3rd. By the way, if you have any
Oh, she's back.
minutes, please send them ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a big difference for us, thank you.
Sorry.
If you all heard that, please send amendments ahead,
Please.
anything you can find, please. And that's actually pretty standard procedure administratively. Okay,
Do you want to have, go back?
You've done any minutes, yeah?
well, we're doing
We
the,
need you for the August 28th. That was the special meeting, the
Got it.
question of the motion. I did correct them, I changed the motion to reflect exactly what happened. There was some confusion, there was a restating of the motion, and nothing.
so that's corrected.
It's been
Okay.
corrected.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion and a second.
Motion approved.
Making a motion.
He did.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least I-
Okay, we have a second roll call.
So trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Coe will abstain. Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev will abstain. Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, what's
Okay,
next?
October 3rd.
Okay, so I just
Are
have,
we on October 3rd?
Yes.
Yeah,
so on the second page, the Frog House, we were talking about the Frog House event. I'd like to represent in the minutes that we made a understanding that there would be no retail sales or marketing at that event, and that's not included in here. You can just add that, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, Lil.
I don't know quite how to reflect this correction, but under village bench cost and materials, the accurate statement is that the 2,200 will also include $600 for installation and future maintenance, not the village will pay.
We can just, we'll say will include.
Or to include.
To include.
Yeah, it's a good,
Yeah,
that's a good point. It's clarity. It's clear.
Clear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it makes it sound as if it's coming out of village coffers, which it is
Gotcha.
not.
It is not, you're right. Okay. Okay.
Can we approve with corrections?
Yeah, of course.
Approve with corrections.
Second,
Or a motion to approve with
You
corrections.
know what you meant.
Yeah, thank you.
I second.
Yep, got it. Trustee Lightkit.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
October 10th.
Who's now?
It's Karen McCready, not McCready.
Oh,
Oh, that's a good.
She is a very generous
She
community.
is, I know. That was a good catch.
Other than that, I'm okay.
Okay.
Anybody else? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve Tuesday, October 10th meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
Yep.
Hang on.
Sorry.
Nope,
I
nope.
don't know how critical this is, but I did not say the church parking lot. What I said was,
Where are you?
they-
Where are you?
First page.
it was
First page, okay.
Blades, where Blades was.
Oh, yeah, the parking lot there.
Oh, yeah, the former Blaze. Former location of Blaze.
Mhm.
Motion to approve with correction.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Hold on. I don't write names, I don't know. Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Lightkit.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
The motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, now, we do need to
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I make a motion that we go into executive session for
Do you
the,
need for this?
You might want to stay.
yeah, sorry,
Sorry.
I know. I know.
You know
We're so
it.
close, too, I know.
Do you need me for this?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing HR matter, an employment matter, yes.
Motion to go in an executive session
I second.
for an HR matter.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, give it a minute, she's gonna mute. Oh, I need to stretch. Wow.
Now it's green.
I make a motion, we exit executive session.
Second?
Roll call.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I make a motion, we adjourn, is there a second?
I second.
Roll call.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes. Good night.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
A
everyone.
lot of good discussion.
Very good.
Yeah.